Hey everybody, welcome back to yet another sports podcast with your bearded brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And we are here to talk about sports, and holy bejesus, was it ever a week this week.
Kitty goes meow.
Kitty went meow, just like we said they would. Bow bow.
Alright.
So, kind of excited about that. But before we get to that, we gotta talk about the news. Where do you want to start?
The news. There is so much news to talk about. A lot of it's just like rumor mill BS, but there's always a grain of truth in a lot of that.
There's coaching firings. There's been at least one retirement.
There's been obviously a bunch of people that have been requested to do interviews or have already completed interviews.
And there's been that, and then there's some hockey news we could talk about. There's some UFC news.
Yep. So one I want to address real quick because I assume you saw it, but I saw it late last night, which is apparently the Broncos interviewing Sean Payton got delayed because Sean Payton agreed to go interview with the Cardinals.
I did see that.
I did not expect that one. I'm not gonna lie.
And there was news that just broke this morning.
Oh, I must have. I haven't seen that then.
You haven't seen anything about this morning?
No.
It involves the Patriots and their new offensive coordinator.
Oh, they got a new one, huh?
They did hire a new one. Welcome back, Bill O'Brien.
Oh. Okay, I'll give the guy credit. He's at least a decent offensive mind, but he's keep him as far away from head coaching. Yeah, keep him as far away from head coaching as possible. We can't make those kind of decisions. Leave him to make the plays.
Hold on. Don't keep him as far away as you can from head coaches. Keep him as far away as you can from any football personnel decisions.
That's what I mean, though. Like, coaching kind of implies that that's going to have head coaching.
No, because you have a GM that normally does that.
Yeah and no. Head coaching can. So, as you know, the GMs make the ultimate
call,
but head coaches have
in the Texans organization. I think he was doing both.
He was. But what I'm saying
and you don't know.
That was bad. That was terrible.
I think he can coach, but he needs to have not zero input. He needs to be able to tell you what he needs, but he should not be making trades.
No, he should be making trades. He shouldn't be deciding salaries.
No, he was horrible at that.
He took things a little too personally, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying keep him away from head coaching, because even if he was a head coach, you don't want to have players not want to play for you because of personality issues. That's the last thing you want to have to deal with. Keep him as a coordinator. I think that's fine. That's what he can do.
Bill O'Brien definitively did. He is now back as the Patriots offensive coordinator.
Which I saw rumored a couple days ago, so I wouldn't have been so shocked to see that, and now that it's confirmed, it's more like, no, all right, fair enough.
The other news that kind of came out overnight, Zeke.
I saw that one, yeah.
Put into the world, into the media world, that he is willing to take a pay cut to stay in Dallas. At this point, I think he's just getting ahead of it because he knows it's coming.
Well, I think he knows it's coming because he has one of two options if he wants to stay in Dallas. It's either take a pay cut or you're getting traded. There is no...
at this point, who would take him? He was 22nd in the league in yards and first in salary. Nobody's taking that.
I mean...
Even Buffalo, who needs a running back, isn't taking that.
Well... Not the full contract, but if they found a way to trade him and split the contract, I think that you could. We've seen that before.
They do in hockey. No, I could see that, but that's not happening.
And we've seen that before with other players.
And he has no interest. My understanding is he has no interest in being traded. He has just built a new house in Dallas.
No, he'd rather stay in Dallas.
As far as he's concerned, Dallas is his home. He's willing to take a pay cut to stick around there. I think he's made a lot of money already, it was brought up. We've never quite seen such a precipitous fall as his, because he's just continually gotten worse every year.
Yeah,
So I hate to say that, but
it's true. Though.
I mean, he's a good locker room guy. Apparently, he had a kerfluffle very early in his career, but he's been really clean ever since. No off the field issues. So apparently, he's a really good locker room leader. He's a good locker room guy. He does a lot with the team. He's a presence you want to have in your locker room. So, Yeah, you're going to take a pay cut, and he's going to stick around as a change of pace back. That's literally what he's going to do. He's going to be the thunder to somebody's lightning.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, though, I mean, they kind of had that kind of working with Pollard being their back, their main
also,
back.
Zeke is really good in pass protection.
Yeah.
As the running back in a pass protection to chip a blitzing linebacker or something.
And there's a
He's
couple other
obviously
guys
not going to
really
stop a defensive lineman, as we saw the other night. We'll talk about that.
Who was that one guy? Oh God, it was. Oh, a super small dude just checked the shit out of somebody, like a bigger lineman, and threw him on his ass. It was like last week.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Which running back was that?
It
was a smaller guy too.
Funny as crap.
Oh my God! I think was it the one for the 49ers?
There were two. There was one that happened for the 49ers, and then there was one they actually called when it happened to Dallas.
Yeah, I think it was the smaller running back for Ooh, it might have been KC. Was it KC? Because they have... Yeah, I think it was KC. What was the guy's name? He was a really small guy. It happened against the Jaguars, I think. It was one of the... It wasn't Edward Hilaire, but it was the other one. Like, super small, but speedy as hell. But he was like... He just checked the shit out of a giant lineman, and the guy dropped on his ass, not expecting that guy to get checked. It was hilarious.
Okay, so do we want to real quick run through the people that no longer have jobs?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I assume you have the list.
The quick list of people that no longer have jobs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, gone. Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, gone. Mm-hmm. Dolphins defensive coordinator Josh Boyer, gone. Mm-hmm. Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman has resigned.
Yep,
those are the big ones that no longer have jobs in the NFL. In the NHL, the Canucks have fired head coach Bruce Boudreau and hired Rick Tocchet. That's a whole separate thing we'll talk about later. But they did Brucey pretty dirty. There's a thing there. Yeah. Outside of that, those are the big, like, you don't have a job anymore, pack your shit, get out. They fired a whole bunch of people alongside Leftwich.
Goodbye, Ed!
See ya, Ed.
We won't miss you!
Now, Ed apparently Ed had been brought in because he was, he helped do the 3-4 defense in John Fox's systems?
Yeah.
Was it Fox? Yeah. And he helped design some of those really, really good defenses that just sacked the crap out of people. The problem was Ed's schemes to sack people got pretty predictable pretty quickly.
It's predictable, and then on top of that, I think the scheming for our team in general didn't work because some of the personnel didn't quite fit that scheme either.
No.
So you have a brand new scheme that you're trying to bring in. You have to the players have to learn the new scheme and the new code phrases or whatever it is, right?
And
then on top of that, still try to be able to play their position properly.
I have a list of the free agents and of the top.
Ooh, there's a couple of people that have already been like requested to be interviewed that I'm like looking forward to possibly like
not coaching. I'm talking for Vikings Corner for the actual team.
Yeah, for the cap.
We need to talk about the salary cap situation.
Yeah.
So that being said, the other news is that, you know, rumor-wise now, the Vikings have requested to interview Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator position, which he's a hell of a defensive coordinator.
He is. He's good at defenses.
He's a good defensive mind. I think he's a good coach, too, a good head coach, if you really want my opinion. He just didn't want to play the politics game that the Miami owner wanted him to play. I think it was some bullshit. But that's just me personally.
Also, I think there was a couple other names that were like decent that they announced were.
I think so. There've been some interesting. Hey, can we interview this guy?
Yeah.
Who Roman interviewed somewhere, or no? Yeah. Who was it? The big news is that the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, is currently being. They've requested to interview him. Carolina has for their head coaching position. So I think that's interesting in and of itself.
By the way, I also saw that the Broncos said that they are considering their current interim coach to be coach as well. Like they interviewed him.
That wouldn't be a horrible idea, considering he seemed to do a pretty good job with Russell for
Yeah.
the few games that we got to see it.
Yeah. So they admitted that they're giving him an interview.
I mean that might, depending on, because I was going to talk about that. Sean Payton reportedly wants like $25 million a year or something.
Well, it's that, but I think from my understanding is also because he's still technically under contract with the Saints, they need to give up stuff to the Saints for him too.
Yep.
So,
and I don't think they want to do that considering all they gave up for Russell Wilson.
So my understanding is that they're asking for a first and a second, and Sean Payton made it sound like that's all the Saints are probably asking for. But apparently there's other rumors that actually are coming out that say, no, the Saints are actually asking for even more than that. Which is absolutely ludicrous for the Saints to even think that they can have that much power.
So I think it'll go to arbitration over that, depending on how much they're asking for.
Yeah.
Most people think it'll be a mid-first round pick and like a second or a third.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, but apparently like there are people saying that like no, they're asking for a high tier first and possibly players involved, a high tier first, second, and players. Like it's just ridiculous. Yeah. If the Saints legitimately think that that's what they're going to get, then Sean Payton's going to be pissed because then he can't get a job anywhere.
No, and he'll sue.
Yeah.
There will be an arbitration thing that'll have to come out.
Yeah.
That will come down between that, but he's technically under contract from them.
Yeah.
And what he could do is sit that out. Sit out another season.
Which is what I've heard is possible still.
Because that would end his contract with them. He would be finished.
Yeah. From what I've heard, he's
one more year.
From what I've heard, he has considered that as a possibility of not coming back this year.
Sit another season and then go, and that way nobody has to pay New Orleans for you, and then New Orleans loses out. So if New Orleans is smart, they'll keep the asking price.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if New Orleans does it, they're just being stupid. Like I don't know why they think they have any strength in that. You know,
they would just be stupid. All right, keeping with the football talk. Peyton Hillis. We did not get a chance to talk about Peyton Hillis last week. I think we should have. Peyton Hillis had gone into the hospital as well. Funnily, he and Chris and I had been talking about Peyton Hillis. I think it was actually 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we brought him up as just the 1 year wonder type of player, and the Great White Avalanche.
Yeah.
And right after that news came out that he was in the hospital after rescuing his 2 kids from drowning.
Yep.
Good news is this week a couple of days ago, he has been released from the hospital and is doing much better. So he will survive. He's doing all right. Awesome to Peyton. You did a good job. Dude, fantastic. As much as you were kind of a one-hit wonder in the NFL, let's be honest, NFL always does stand not for long.
Yep.
But
some
you did a great
players
job.
get away with it longer than others, but most don't make it to that.
Yep, most don't make it very long. So you did a great job. I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy to see that you're going to be okay. I think that's pretty good for you, in all honesty. Good job.
I think the last update I read on DeMar too is that he's out of the hospital.
Yep.
He was at the stadium during the game.
Yep. Yep.
But from my understanding, while he can still like walk around a bit, he's still very weak and still sometimes needs to be oxygenated or get oxygen.
Yeah,
oxygenated. Yeah. So from my understanding, his lungs are still not fully there, and there's still the questions on if he'll be able to still come back and play.
Yeah.
Or if he'll just always have to deal with that.
100% understand that. That is kind of a big deal. All right. The Giants came out and said they are planning to keep Daniel Jones. They do consider, the GM said they do consider him to be part of the future. Speaking on which, Saquon Barkley said that he doesn't plan to want to break the bank or set a new precedent. So, considering the high-paid guy right now, there's 2 of them. There's Zeke at 17 and there's CMC at 16. They offered him 12 and he turned it down. I'm thinking they're going to go somewhere between 14 and 15, and that's where he's going to end up.
Probably, and it sounds like, and he's made it clear that he wants to stay at the Giants.
Yeah, he does want to stay in New York. I think he likes it there. He's from the upper states. Like, I don't know where he's from, but I know he played college at Penn State.
Penn, yeah.
So I know he's from that area he's familiar with. I think that's a comfortable area to him.
On top of that, who knows? I know that there was a lot of issues with Saquon with, I guess I shouldn't say a lot of issues, but with some past coaches that he maybe didn't always get along with.
And I think it
sounds like he likes Dable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's good for him. The Chiefs are preparing. We should talk about that real quick. We'll cover it more later. But Mahomes did get injured. He has a high ankle sprain. Mm-hmm. He did get injured in that game. The Chiefs are preparing as though he will be available.
He will be. He'll play.
To play. He'll play. It's a big enough game that they'll tape it up and shoot him full of some Toradol or something, something in there to numb that up, and he'll play off of it. He'll be limited in mobility, and I think the Bengals are going to come after him. But we'll push that off because that's a different discussion.
Yeah, I like even if they tried to keep him off the field, I think that's where the problem is. If he's a competitive guy, I don't think you can keep him off the field.
I don't think you can keep him off the field either.
You'd have to have security basically pull him off.
The news coming out of Green Bay. The big news is that they have stated outright that they would consider trading Aaron Rodgers if the package makes sense.
Yeah, they basically implied that it's a real possibility that they are not opposed to not trading him, and that even in all cases considered. Here's the thing: I don't know if Rodgers comes back. Does he want to be traded? Does he have a no trade clause? I don't know.
I don't think so, but he might.
I think
specifically he doesn't, because I think specifically when he re-signed that contract, he was thinking he wanted out after a year or two to go to a contendership style team, because he didn't know if Green Bay was going to contend. Right. And remember, he was having all the problems with Gutekunst.
Yeah.
And I think he was honestly, I don't think he put one in specifically because I think he wanted to be able to push one if he wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think there's also a pretty good, from the sound of it, he was also upset about that in the first place because they were getting rid of pieces that he really liked. His big contention with what he had as a problem in the first place was them trading away pieces that he thought were still valuable pieces that they could have kept. And from what I've been hearing is that still might happen, is that they might still end up having to trade some pieces due to cap and salary, and that might actually potentially upset Aaron, especially if it's certain individuals that he likes in the locker room, in which case that's why they're saying that there's a possibility that he does get traded, because if the Packers do go through with removing some of the pieces that he does like, then inevitably he might be more like, just get me out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a couple of places he could go, couple of weird deals that would make sense.
The Jets?
The Jets is one. There has been an absolutely delusional Packers fan that's made the rounds on social media, who, I don't know if you've seen the thing he tried to put out. He tried to trade from the Seahawks DK Metcalf and 3 first-round picks, and it was absolutely delusional fantasy booking. And you're just like,
if you think Aaron Rodgers is worth 3 first-round picks and DK Metcalf, you are out of your mind.
I wouldn't even do DK Metcalf straight up for Rodgers at this point.
No. Maybe. No. Unlikely.
No.
Probably
Definitely not. No.
Definitely not even a first-rounder, maybe.
Low first-rounder, maybe.
But probably not. It's probably going to be
a player. If I had a
first-rounder
down in the 20s or 30s or something. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'd trade that.
Yeah. But
no, you're not getting more. You're not getting a whole lot, because remember, he's 39. I want to say
you're only going to get 2 to 3 years out of him. Likely.
2 to 3 years out of him. He's $50 million a year.
Yep.
No, you're not going to get a whole lot out of him. Stop trying to say that he's worth the farm. He's not.
He's not.
So I'm going to tell the Packers fans this. If we have any Packers fans that watch this, stop trying to sell Stop trying to say you need the farm for him. You're going to end up keeping him, and he's going to be unhappy, and then you're just going to whine about it. Stop.
Exactly. But that's Green Bay. They expect constant excellence because of their fucking because of how lucky they've been over the last 2 decades, and they
seem to forget that before Brett Favre they sucked.
Yeah, I think they fail to realize that if the path they're going down is going to result in absolute destruction, and they're going to end up becoming the fucking Detroit Lions for a while. Like, legit. Like, you guys got to remember that, like, after you get rid of these guys, who do you have left? You have Jordan Love. Is he a good QB or not? We don't actually know. But what I'm saying is that you can't expect excellence and expect that you're going to get gifted 3 first rounds for Aaron Rodgers because you think he's still the god-tier quarterback.
Now,
it's just not real.
I did hear somebody, I won't say who yet, you can draw your own analysis after you hear the trade, make a trade that made sense for Rodgers.
The only person that I know that on YouTube that does that is either going to be That's Good Sports, what's his name?
Nope, but it wasn't Brandon Perna.
Brandon Perna or Tom Grossi more than often than not.
Neither one of them.
Okay. Brett Coleman doesn't do a lot of trade stuff, so I don't think it's Brett either.
Nope. But I heard it, and I wanted to share it with you.
Franchise guy sometimes
does. It would be Aaron Rodgers coming south for Rain Dakota Prescott.
No.
I agree.
No, it doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense.
Monetarily, it makes sense. And then it makes sense for Green Bay because Prescott is 29. And he's a commodity, and what you are getting with him.
Here's why I don't agree monetarily, because the Packers will not take on that contract. It's too expensive. They won't take on that contract. That's why it makes sense. It makes sense for the Cowboys to off-move him. Correct. It does not make sense for the Packers to take on that contract.
No, and I kind of half agree. By the way, it was Skip that fucked that one up. Which was interesting because
if that happened, Skip would orgasm. All right, like
it's funny to me because he's been so anti-Rodgers for such a long time. To openly advocate that the Cowboys should try to trade for him, I think is
Skip.
Funny to me.
I wouldn't say he's been 100% anti-Rodgers. I'd argue that.
So yeah, no, you're right, but I just found that Skip kind of doing that kind of made me chuckle a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been completely. So the thing is, he's never been completely anti-Rodgers. That's what makes him kind of weird. Because he'll come up with like stats and stuff that is like really good for Rodgers, but then he'll also point out that like I think the thing that he's kind of anti-Rodgers about is not necessarily the Rodgers the player, it's Rodgers the person, if that makes sense.
A little bit, yeah.
And that kind of makes sense for Skip, right? If you think about Skip Bayless as a person.
Actually, Shannon's been pretty anti-Rodgers as a person recently too.
He has been, but I've been very anti-Shannon Sharpe for a long time, so you know.
Do we want to talk about that?
I might as well. It's a good segue.
It's a good segue. Okay, so real quick, for those of you that don't know, recently Shannon Sharpe got into a beef with who was it on there? Oh, the Memphis Grizzlies.
Basically all of the Grizzlies.
It was essentially all of the Grizzlies. I actually, you're gonna laugh at me. No, not you. I downloaded a screenshot of some of the stuff that he said to like during his apology. It was started with Dylan Brooks. Apparently, he said something to the effect of Dylan Brooks was too short or too small to guard LeBron. And Dylan Brooks came at him and basically told him to get fucked or fuck him. And Sharpe came back and said, fuck you too. And it turned into kind of a brouhaha between him and the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, he did go on his show the next day, and one of the things he said, as you have probably seen or heard Friday night at the Lakers game, I want to apologize for my behavior. I've preached for the last 6.5 years responsibility and accountability, and I take full responsibility for what transpired. It does not matter what Dylan Brooks said or how many times he said it. Me being the responsible person, me having the platform that I have, and having so many people look up to me, I was wrong. I should have lowered the temperature in the arena, and instead I turned the temperature up and let it get out of hand. Now, I'm going to stop there. because we both have some things we want to say.
So,
So I'm gonna
I was gonna say
quickly.
the very first thing I want to touch on is he immediately. Do you see the way that apology is written? Like the
100%.
So the one thing that I picked up on immediately is I do a lot of like picking apart people's sentences, and you can typically find motives when you do so. So right away when he goes, I apologize for my behavior, blah, 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 he then goes in, it doesn't matter what he said to me or how many times he said it. You dumb motherfucker, you started the fight. Don't throw him under the bus. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to toss it off onto the other guy.
So I do want to bring that up because one of the things that they have talked about in the past, because players have been heckled by fans at courtside before, and one of the things that he said was, hey, just because you buy a ticket doesn't give you the right to do something like that. Guess what, Shannon? That applies to you, to Mr. Sharpe.
Exactly.
You have to be the guy that follows what you say. Otherwise, you're a what?
Hypocrite.
Yay! There it is. So you started that fight, and now you're trying to make it seem like you didn't. In the apology, you should have said, I should have never spoken to him. I should have kept my mouth shut. And if I'd wanted to flay him, I could have come on my own program and done it.
Exactly.
If you had done that, I think that apology carries a lot more weight to me.
I agree.
I admire the fact that you went on and apologized.
Yes.
But it was very clearly written to try to cast blame on the other person.
Exactly.
Very clearly written. Your motive was very clear to try to keep your brand safe.
Exactly.
It was definitely a PR spin on that.
There was definitely a PR spin on that.
If you want to take some responsibility, take responsibility for the fact that you should never spoke up in the first place.
Exactly. And that's and to be completely honest with you, and it's one thing that I do want to address. As I said earlier, I'm not the biggest Shannon Sharpe guy because I've seen this more times than I think I can count. Where this is probably the most public version that he's done of this, but he just ends up being kind of a hypocrite in general. And from the interviews I've seen of him, he doesn't come across well to me.
No.
And so he just comes across as an unlikable person. And the times I've seen him be a hypocrite, it makes me I don't like those kind of people. Don't do the, do as I say, not as I do bullshit. I hate that kind of thing. He seems exactly like that type of person. And frankly, I don't like him. And I don't care if he's a different person outside of a personality versus him personally. If that's how he's going to personally conduct him.
That persona that you put on TV is an act. The true person of you was revealed in the moment when you started yelling at Dylan Brooks.
And that's what I was going to say. Is like, if that's how you're going to conduct yourself personally.
Even if I want to, all I have to do is go back and look at your playing days, Mr. Sharpe. You did get a Hall of Fame nod. You are in the Hall of Fame. Your bust is in Canton.
Yep.
I'm not going to say that you weren't a great player, because obviously you were.
Yeah.
But you talked a lot of trash.
That's just who you are.
You went at people back and forth very hard. And you know what? All of that mess that you wound up talking over and over and just back and forth, my guy, that obviously does not paint you in the best light.
No, listen, like, I respect people that can do that, and I even respect people that are adamant, like, yeah, I'm a competitive person and I talk shit. That's fine. I don't care if that's what you are. What I care about is when you are that type of person and then you criticize somebody for doing that exact same thing that you did, except for maybe not on the field, like in the case of this, like ringside or whatever it may be, right? And then you criticize that person for doing it and then do that exact same thing. Like, it just doesn't... Like, I expected it from Shannon Sharpe because he is a competitive individual. But I hate to tell you, you're not playing anymore, my guy. There's no place for that when you're not playing anymore. And the problem is, it's so cemented in his brain that he just thinks it's okay, and it's not.
Now, I will also say that things that Dylan Brooks said afterwards are also not okay. No. I'm not going to justify one by the other, but... You running down Shannon Sharpe and calling him just a regular person, dude, the guy's an NFL Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Be at least slightly respectful there, and you can say what you wanted to say about him starting it, but you can do it in a respectful manner that puts you above him.
Yeah.
You obviously did not do that.
No, no. And to be fair,
so,
to Dylan Brooks, so this is where I will be Brooks. Sorry. To be fair, when you're a competitive individual and you're playing your game, you're already trying to like stay in the competitive sphere, right? You're in a certain specific mindset, and having someone scream at you, regardless of who it is, can really take you out of that and really fuck you up. And so I can understand why he was so absolutely angry, because in his mindset, he is an NFL Hall of Famer. He should know better. And
yes.
so I can understand from Dylan Brooks' perspective that even though he was very hot-headed to begin with and what he said was probably out of line, I can also understand that in that moment, in that competitive environment, that kind of things might happen, right? And that's just
so. I will tell you the one guy on that Memphis team that I outright can tell you flat that Shannon wants nothing to do with. You don't want any smoke from him. Is Steven Adams. If you don't know anything about the NBA, look up Steven Adams. That dude is a monster. I know that Sharpe is jacked. Steven Adams makes him look like a child.
Pretty much.
He's not the greatest ball player, but he is absolutely a monster when it comes to
He's a bully. He's good at being a bully, basically.
Oh, Steven Adams is great at setting up pick and just letting you run into him, and it's like hitting a wall. I watch people hit him on screens, and they act like they've just run into a steel wall. It's so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, he's also a nice person on occasion. I don't remember if it was Mason Plumlee that was trying to shoot, but somebody was trying to shoot, and he was going underneath, or if he was trying to shoot and somebody tried to block him, he stopped. What was him trying to shoot? He faked them out. They were going to take a really hard tumble and maybe hit their head. He stopped on the shot, didn't bother to try to go for the end one, caught the player and helped them down. They didn't get hurt. He's got no problems being a good dude, but if you piss him off, that's going to be bad. Okay. Moving on from that, with UFC news, Glover Teixeira. He's been fighting for years. He's been a competitor for, I think, 20 years at this point in the professional fight scene. He has retired after getting the brakes beat off of him by Jamal Hill. That happened very recently.
It is what it is.
He's decided that he's not going to take any more fights. But you know what? Every fighter hits that point where he's just, okay, no, I'm done. I'm glad he finally recognized it. Time for him to walk away. Yeah. And now we've got to talk about this is going to be the long segment of news that I think we have to talk about. It happened in the NHL. You and I have already had a discussion about it. But I do think it's something that needs to be brought up because there's a lot of people are demonizing both the coach and the player about it. And I think we need to hear a different perspective on it. For those of you that don't know, Ivan Provorov is a player for the Philadelphia Flyers. I believe he's a defenseman. Yeah. Currently, the NHL has an initiative with a group that supports LGBTQ plus rights. And they are, at certain games during the season, the warm-ups are totally blacked out, and then the numbers and the name are in pride colors, and you put pride color tape on your stick. Because players have the decision that they can participate in whatever initiatives they deem that they want to take part in that the league supports, they can also opt out of initiatives. Provorov decided he was not going to go to warm-ups, and he was not going to wear that, and he cited his religion. He is Russian, and he is Eastern Orthodox, so far as we know. That shouldn't have any bearing on this. The point of all of this is he took a lot of flack for it, as did their coach. But
I don't think so.
Coach, I'm going to say this. The coach is bombastic, and I think at this point, anything he says and doubles down on is simply to take fire off of the player because he's used to people hating him. John Tortorella is
there's
a
some
personality.
There's some of that, but I think he legit believes that there's nothing he did wrong. He even said it, I don't believe the player did anything wrong. And as far as anything, I've been paying attention to the news and trying to pay attention, I haven't heard any teammates come out against him either. Which makes me think that that makes me assume that either the players don't have a sway in either way, but that also tells me that he's not a complete asshole where he has some players come out and go, oh yeah, I'm not surprised by that guy doing that, right?
No. So apparently that does sound like most of the players would have his back on this. And it's basically in the week, because it happened the day after we recorded.
Yeah.
And in the week since then, I've heard nothing else about it. Like, it was a big news on Wednesday and Thursday, and then it just kind of vanished into the ether.
Yeah.
Whether that's because the NHL is suppressing it or because everybody realized it's a non-story. So what I wanted to say was, why wasn't there another set of gear for him to wear? Why isn't there a contingency for if you don't want to participate in warm-ups, you have a different set of warm-ups out there that you can do?
Exactly. I mean, it seems weird to state that, yes, we have initiatives that you can in and opt out of, but then not provide alternative jerseys for when someone does decide to opt out.
And this is just warm-ups, so it's not like it's a jersey scheme.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I would be okay also if they wanted to put a patch on the jersey for it. Because then you're not, you know what? They have a patch on there that says that we are part of our salary donates to this, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then he doesn't have to do that. Yeah. But he could do it for literacy or something else. But the point is, then you could show your support for different nonprofit organizations and causes that way. Yeah. There are a lot of things the NHL could do, and this is why I'm going to rant in Hockey Corner about Gary Bettman, because I think he's a piece of shit. This all could have been avoided, and there were steps that could have been taken, but it's quite obvious that it was not thought through at all by Bettman and his people. It was
it feels like almost like they didn't think that anyone would just say no.
Exactly.
That's almost what it feels like, you know?
Yeah, it feels like they didn't. Oh, and even if they blah, 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 blah. Guys, you got to figure something out. So the point is, I do want to say that my initial reaction was, wow, what an asshole. And then I read more into it, and I was like, no. Bettman is definitely an asshole, and the league are stupid for doing this. And this is gonna. The reason this is a non-story is because the league, I think, has realized they're wrong.
Yeah. They don't want the story to come out that we didn't even offer him alternative gear or offer him any type of other offer.
That story to come out. That's why there's no fine. There's no nothing else. It's just going to go away.
And for those and to be clear, for those people that are upset about it, I saw one article on it that I thought was absolutely ludicrous, where this guy basically implied that, like, oh, if that's how you feel, why don't you go back to Russia and go fight in the fucking war? First off, dude, fuck you. That's pretty shitty to say. That's a pretty shitty take. And if you're and it's supposed to be a sports pundit, fuck you. First off, for thinking that that's even okay to say, because it's not. It's for, like, you're basically implying that you'd rather him go to the war and fucking die. Like, that's pretty shit. That's a shit take. Second off, I hate to inform you, every company has different kinds of initiatives. Think about any company you've ever worked for where you have a certain type of initiatives. Most of the time, unless it's like a safety thing, you can opt in or out of those. And it's totally safe for you to do so. You are allowed to practice and preach what you want for your own religion. They can't fire you for it. They can't fine you for it. It's the same thing with any type of LGBT. They can't fire you. They can't fine you for what you say or how, like, unless it's like derogatory, but like they can't fire you for practicing or participating.
This wasn't derogatory. This was just, I don't want to participate because I have to hold true to my religion.
And he cited his religion as a reason. Now, I'll say that a lot of people cite their religion in some of those cases to just not have to participate, which is fine. They're allowed to if they want to. But every company under the sun is allowed to, because we live in fucking America, where that's allowed to, where you're allowed to go, I have a different opinion and I don't want to support that.
Even though the NHL is technically international, because it's also in Canada.
True.
The point is that the NHL is while the league offices are in Toronto, it doesn't matter. It's free speech.
Yeah.
The guy is allowed to say what and do what he wants with that, as long as he's not like being derogatory, because there's a whole set of rules and guidelines about that. And he wasn't being derogatory. He just said, hey, I just don't feel comfortable with that, and I have to be true to my religion, and I don't want to take any more questions about it.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's personal. He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. So for all those people attacking
do I
him,
admit that and I get that there are going to be people that say that's a bad look. Whatever he says is going to be a bad look. So the less he says, the better. To be completely honest, because somebody's going to take and spin what he says. I'm sure somebody's going to clip what we're saying here and spin as though we're huge, horrible individuals.
Yeah. And here's the thing: you don't have to. Like, here's the one thing I can say: if you don't have to like the player, that's fine. If this is the reason why you don't like the player and don't want to support him, you don't have to. You have that choice.
Congratulations! Welcome to free speechdom.
You have that choice. But to claim that he shouldn't be allowed to play anymore, should be fined or banned or sent back to Russia, is fucking extreme. That's extreme.
The one that I saw, and the take that I can agree with, but I also will say that we've already countered it, is he didn't participate in warm-ups, you shouldn't play for that game.
Yeah.
And you know what? I could get that, but only if they'd have had another set of warm-ups that he could have won.
If they would have given him an alternative warm-ups to where, and he still went, no, I don't even want to go out. Then
I don't even want to be on the ice when you're doing this.
Fine.
No, then absolutely
then you can't play.
You could say that he shouldn't play in the game.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And we want to bring that out too. We want to say that if that's the case, then no, we agree. But we don't know what the situation in the locker room was, and it's not going to come any further out because the NHL doesn't want it to, because I think they realized that it was their bad.
Yeah.
And I think that it blew up from something that shouldn't have blown up. But that's...
And also, I hate to be that guy, but to be completely blunt and honest with you, remember the NHL is international, like we've already established. But a lot of players come from overseas.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to realize
Russia
that...
and Sweden
and you have
Norway and...
Yeah, exactly. And you have to realize that in some of those countries, in some of those areas, kind of like Russia, they frown upon homosexuals. It's just the way it is. I hate to tell you. And so...
a lot of the former, what would be called Eastern Bloc countries, Belarus and things of that nature, there's kind of a stigma about it. In Russia, I believe it is actually illegal.
It's still illegal, yeah. So all I'm saying is that even though you want to get angry about this, think about where these people come from and where they grew up. The way they grew up and how they were taught and how they were raised is vastly different than how we were raised. So some people are incredibly religious in that area, and it's very possible he just is that religious where he does believe it to be a sin and he doesn't want to partake. Now, am I saying that's the case? No, not at all. I think that's crazy. I think religion in general is wishy-washy depending on who you ask and who you talk to. But I do want to point out that we do have that freedom of religion. We have that,
and we have that freedom to think that way, and to be able to, for you and I to put this out here the way that we are. In certain countries, we wouldn't be allowed to do this.
Yeah. So I think we have to realize that a lot of the people that come over into hockey come from some of those areas, and sometimes that's going to happen where some of them might be okay with it and just go, it's not a big deal. It doesn't really affect me too much. And there are going to be some players who are going, no, I don't really want to participate or acknowledge it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen more often than in other leagues like baseball or I guess baseball still actually probably does. They have a lot of overseas, but the NFL, like a lot of people point at the NFL, like
baseball doesn't. You don't get a lot of like European baseball.
No,
players.
But they get overseas players, right?
Yeah, but most of them are
from
like
Asia,
Dominican Republic,
America, Asia is pretty common.
Asia, you don't see a whole ton of Asian players, but there are some.
mostly Japanese and South Korea.
And then 90% of baseball players come from like Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic or something.
Yeah,
Cuba.
So, but what I'm just saying is that out of like all of the sports that gets played, I mean, I guess Eastern would also, I guess NBA probably does a lot of people over from that area.
Europe, they get a lot of European talent.
So
not really Russian, but more European.
Yeah. So all I'm saying though is that like NHL in particular is going to have a lot more of that side of that country, that side of the world. And you just have to recognize that that's going to happen sometimes.
And it's just a thing. And hopefully as that part of the world, I hate to say it, but if you look at history, Russia's always kind of lagged behind everybody else in terms of in terms of progress and where they want to be socially and everything.
Yeah.
So as they inevitably will get dragged as the anchor kicking and screaming into where we're at,
Yeah.
we'll begin to see less and less of it.
Yeah.
It's
just going to be the way it is for the next probably, Russia's going to take forever. I would say 100 years, but maybe I'm exaggerating. But you know what I'm
50,
saying.
60, something like that. Yeah. They're usually pretty far behind. But I think that's
the only time that they were actually up on the date was when they actually had presidents. Jeez, Gorbachev, remember that guy? Probably the best thing that happened to fucking Russia.
Well, and he wasn't the president to start with. He was
Gorbachev. No,
he was actually in charge of the USSR at the time.
Yeah.
And he decided on what's called glasnost and perestroika, which is transparency and openness.
Yeah.
Is, I believe, what those words actually mean.
Yeah.
And that began the crumbling, and with all the freedoms that he began to give the satellite states within the Soviet Republic, Boris Yeltsin and a bunch of them went behind his back and dissolved the USSR and decided they didn't want to be a part of it anymore and kind of usurped his power. But he let it happen anyway, and he didn't get angry about it.
He was okay with it, and on top of that, you got to remember too that he also tried to impose term rules, kind of like America does. He served literally 2 terms and basically went, or I think it was a total of like 8 years or something or whatever their term limit was. And he went. They tried to reelect him. He went, no, I don't want it again. He tried doing the George Washington and basically went, no, we should actually have limits on this. And then immediately got followed by Putin and everything went to fucking hell again.
Yeah, Yeltsin immediately got followed by Putin and everything went to crap.
So
Putin. Yeah.
Good job, Putin. You reversed your country's progress by like at least 100 years.
But that's, you know what? I hate to say it. That's Russia.
That's Russia.
I'm not. So anybody who's from Russia, I'm not bashing you.
No.
It's just historically kind of the way you guys are.
Your government just kind of sucks.
And it has for a very long time. But you know what? You guys are. I wouldn't want to fight any of you.
No.
I'm gonna be honest. Y'all are hard-headed and stubborn.
Which is also why it takes forever for them to move forward, because you guys are hard-headed and stubborn.
That's kind of a thing, too. But we are finding out that maybe your military wasn't as good as you thought it was, which is kind of sad.
Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. I don't know if it was necessarily not as good. I think there's a combination if they were using older equipment and on top of you're telling your soldiers to basically invade a sister state almost. Like, to them, it's also going to be hard to also justify fighting that, right?
How much of the equipment did they actually really have, and how much of it may have gotten sold off? And,
yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of issues with that.
So
let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of problems with that, but
there's a lot of problems with that. But regardless, moving forward.
Back to sports. Let's go. Back to sports.
Back to sports.
Let there be sports.
Okay. Do we want to move on to the recap?
Yeah, let's move on to recap.
Move on to the recap. We'll start with the AFC. In fact, we'll start with Jags and Chiefs. This was your wild hair. This was your wild hair pick.
And to be fair,
Jags.
It was a close game.
I will say this: you got closer on your wild pick than I did on mine.
I did.
I got destroyed.
So yeah, the Chiefs did end up winning and beating the Jags.
27-20.
But I'll say this: the Jags had several opportunities. They could have won that game. And obviously, with Patrick Mahomes getting injured early on, they definitely had plenty of opportunities to try to seal this game away. They just didn't quite have enough to get there this time around. I think next year, once they get a couple other key pieces back and they get some more good draft, I think there will be a huge contender. I think this was proof of concept, so to speak, that hey, if we can make it here with what we have now, just imagine once we get a couple more pieces. So I think Trevor Lawrence proved that he can still be that guy. I think he was still making some rookie mistakes in the game. Because if you think about it, I still quantify them as his rookie season.
I am really, really looking at the Jags as the team that's ascendant again.
Yeah.
Um,
The Jags are here to stay now, and frankly, I think as long as they have Trevor Lawrence and if he continues improving, I think that franchise is going to have a good history going forward.
I agree with you 110%. Okay. Then you had the Bengals and the Bills, and that game got out of hand quick.
Ooh, Burrow just wrecked their crap. Yeah, Kitty goes me out.
No, I wasn't growling. I was saying it was cold. Like,
oh yeah, it was very cold, very snowy. A lot of people expected that would be in favor of the Bills, but you have to remember, Burrow grew up in...
Joe Chill there is from Ohio.
He's from Ohio. He played high school football in Ohio. So even though he played college in LSU, he's not afraid of playing in snow.
No, not at all.
So this is nothing new for him, and he proved that without a doubt. And one thing I will continue saying is that Joe Burrow just plays so much better when he's under pressure. He likes the pressure. He likes the big lights. He enjoys being on national TV. You can just tell if you look at his regular season games, it's like, yeah, those are okay, those are good. But it's now happened 2 seasons in a row where towards the end of the season he starts playing better with more pressure. Then he gets into the off season and he excels.
He likes that pressure.
He loves it.
He likes that pressure. He wants to put the pressure on himself. I have wondered if that's why he doesn't do better in the beginning of the years, because he wants to put himself behind the 8 ball.
I don't know
if he can dig himself out.
But on top of that, you also have to realize, like you pointed out that quote that he said, and other people have brought it up on other news outlets, where
the window is my whole damn career.
Yeah, he literally said, as long as I'm here, the window is always open. And he does that to himself. He put that pressure on himself because he wanted to point out that I believe that I am just that damn good that that as long as I'm a Bengal here, there will always be a chance to win the Super Bowl. Which so far,
that damn good.
And so far he has proved that to be correct 2 years in a row. So now will he end up going to the Super Bowl again, beating the Chiefs again? Don't know. But I will say that the real possibility is there, and we could definitely see the Bengals in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. And I think the Bengals are proven that they might be the next big dynasty or the next potential big dynasty behind Kansas City, Buffalo, 49ers. Eagles are now doing it. It's not fair. There's so many good dynasties, and we're not one of them.
So many good quarterbacks right now in the NFL. I think this is going to be a fun time. Because you got Herbert in too, and I think it's going to be fun.
They're not. The Chargers aren't quite there yet, but they have the quarterback.
They're on the way. Oh yeah, they got.
And I think Jacksonville isn't too far behind from being a big contender.
I think you've got this glut of quarterbacks coming in. It's going to be a golden time in the NFL for quite a while at quarterback.
Jeez, my hair just doesn't want to cooperate.
Nah, but you know what? That's all of our hairs.
It is. It's terrible. There's a lot of great QBs coming up. It's very clear that over the last 2 to 3 years that it has been the changing of the core, so to speak, the changing of the vets. Right, you're starting to see all the big guys start to leave, and then you're starting to see the new guns finally develop and become. So there was like several years there where it was just like a lot of like, this is a crap QB, this is crap QBs, oh, this doesn't work, but we finally hit that sweet spot where we have a lot of good QBs finally retaking the guard, like mantling up and replacing the old guard, so to speak, right? And you got the Josh Allens, you got the Patrick Mahomes, you got the Trevor Lawrences, you have Brock Purdy. I'm gonna throw him in there. Even it might be too early, but he's still very good. You have Justin Fields. I still argue he's still definitely gonna be a good QB. You have a Jalen Hurts who's definitely shown how much he's progressed. You do have a Kyler Murray, which he's still a good quarterback, but maybe has some other issues, but still talented on the field. Mm-hmm. Like you have a lot of great
even as
talent
you're starting to lose like the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's, you're beginning to see this next crop come in, and they're gonna lead the way for quite some time, I think.
Yeah, like I said, there was like 2 to 3 years there where a bunch of the older vets started either getting bad and leaving. And there was a gap there. There was a clear gap where people were trying to come in and replace him. Think of like the Josh Rosens, the Baker Mayfields, like.
Mm-hmm.
Is Baker a bad QB? No, but he isn't in the tier that I've listed all the other QBs at. He just isn't.
No.
And Josh Rosen was I hate to say it, a giant bust. He absolutely was.
Yeah, 100%. Should have been way better. Couldn't check his ego at the door.
Yeah. And then you have like the Tuas, which is another. I would argue Tua is going the same path of a Baker, but maybe a little bit less outspoken, so he might stick around for a little longer. Like he's not amazing. He's not going to be a great, but he's going to be a really good.
I think he's going to be I think he's going to be better than Baker. I'd put him at Baker plus.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He's not going to make his. I don't think he's going to make as many mistakes.
No,
in terms of throwing the ball.
And that's that's what I mean. As far as like talent wise, he's a little bit more talented. I think he's going to make better decisions. He doesn't have as much arm strength as Baker, but he's also got a personality that's much more likable.
Exactly.
And so he's not going to be he's not going to be argued as like a Josh a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes. He's just not in that field, or even a Lamar Jackson. Like he's not in that talk. But he's definitely going to be considered a franchise QB that is better than average. He's a good quarterback.
100%.
So, and I completely forgot to even mention Lamar when I was talking about great QBs. I mean, yeah, there's another one. The only downside he has is just not getting fucking broken every season.
That's kind of a problem.
But yeah, it's very clearly a changing of the guard. You only have a couple of vets still around that are any good, which is Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Even you question this last season, is he still good? Was it just the offense, Brian Leftwich? I don't know. But it's clear that
Bruce Arians, maybe.
Bruce Arians, who knows? Yeah.
Because he got kicked upstairs, and as soon as he left, the offense seemed to go with it.
It did. So, those are like the only two big vets that you see that are like, oh yeah, they are what was considered the classic guard, the greats of their time. And now you're starting to see them, even they are like the last still sticking around. I mean,
I mean, you also, Eli's gone, Peyton Manning is gone, Roethlisberger's gone.
Roethlisberger's finally gone, yeah. I mean, there's just not too many of them left. I mean, I don't know. Deshaun Watson's a weird one. He's still not playing up to what he was several years ago, so I don't want to throw him in the mix yet. And then you still have Russell Wilson, who's also still has to have a rebound, who I still would label in probably that old guard. But Cam Newton's gone too. Cam
Newton is gone.
And so even like Jimmy G, I mean, he's probably not gonna stick around too much longer, and he's even younger than Tom Brady. But I would still label him as almost, based upon his age, in that kind of old guard style.
Then the middle guard is guys like Derek Carr and Dak Prescott and
Kirk fucking Cousins. He is. I hate to say it. He is in that book.
We'll get there.
He embodies almost the old guard with his damn statuesque play style, but that's neither here nor there. Geno Smith, I mean, I guess you would call him mid guard, right? Like
a little bit.
Like he definitely he was drafted to be a high guard kind of guy, but
no. Mid guard meaning the in betweens from the old guard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would label
he was
him.
Drafted
he was kind
as
of in between.
Yeah, he was drafted in that in between era, but kind of flopped, and now all of a sudden he's back. So
it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. All right, moving over to the NFC. We had the... I gotta eat this one. We had the Giants at the Eagles. I picked the Giants and got smashed.
I'm glad I pulled back on that one, because even I said last week where I was like, I normally would, but I think I'm only going to allow myself one crazy, and I ended up still taking the Eagles. I didn't like it, because I hate the Eagles. For anyone who doesn't know, I don't hate the Eagles themselves. I hate Philly fans. Philly fans are just the worst.
We should talk about real quick then the billboard in Philly for Eli, which was a welcome back Eli, and it had two eagles on it, which they basically gave him the double bird. Yeah. I think that's hilarious, and he's very emblematic.
It's on brand.
What was it? I think I have the quote here somewhere that he said.
Basically talked about how like it's just a different atmosphere. I guess he had they're not saying nice things when they're saying
Here it is. When you go there, and that 9-year-old kid is giving you the double finger, not a thumbs up, not aware number one, and he said something about my mom. I had to Google what it was.
Yeah.
It's a different culture.
Yeah, legit. Like, Philly fans, like, don't get me wrong. I get how you are, but, man, people don't like to play there because you guys are kind of dicks. You are some of the worst fans, like, straight up. And I don't, and the worst part is, you guys wear that shit with pride. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I think that's the problem. And it's, you know what? I don't like Dallas fans, but they're not mean. They're just delusional.
Yeah, they're just a little delusional.
They're delusional. And that's okay. Like, I can deal with that. Every year you think you're going to the Super Bowl, and you wear that with pride.
Yeah.
And then every year you lose, and you throw your
you get all sad and depressed.
You get all throw away your Dak Prescott jersey.
and let it on fire.
No, in this case, they just threw it in the trash can. There wasn't a bag in there. We'll talk. That's not something we need to talk about. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about. Okay, but guys, Philly fans, you guys are absolute, like, you wear the fact that you are hardcore football fans
also,
that don't want other people in your area.
Yeah.
And, like, even Giants fans aren't as mean as you.
No.
And that's saying something.
And here's the other thing. I don't know if you heard about this, but I heard a rumor, which I don't think is true, and I don't think they'll do it. But there was apparently a rumor that the NFL was deciding if they wanted to make the NFC and AFC championship games neutral ground. Basically pick a random stadium that isn't involved with either one. And the only reason, and one of the reasons that was cited for that is you guys, you assholes, like, because teams don't want to go and play at your stadium in the playoffs.
They actually had, once upon a time, there was a penalty for stadium noise.
Yeah.
And you guys were part of the reason.
Yeah.
Also, I will state that there were certain dome stadiums.
Where,
Indianapolis, that were pumping in crowd noise.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, so Philly fans, I get that you have a certain amount of pride, but I think I think there's a certain point where you guys take it way too far. Like wasn't there, like, did they make like a rule where there was, like, they actually, like, made it so like, I guess the stadium said that they didn't want tailgating for, like, a long periods of time anymore, and so Philly fans apparently found a way around that by going to a different area and offshooting it, and they tailgated for, like, what was it, 12 hours?
It was this. There was a game before the game, which is like a lacrosse game or something, and the Philly fans bought tickets to the lacrosse game so they could be in the parking lot during that game and just tailgate for 12 hours.
Yeah, straight. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They found a way around that. Yeah, like, guys, you guys need to dial that shit back, like, legit.
Like, you guys are crazy, like, legitimately. Like this is coming from a veteran. This is coming from a veteran with, like, serious crazy issues, and I'm gonna tell you guys are crazy. Dial it down a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other game then was the Cowboys at the Niners. We both picked the Niners. We were both correct. That game was a lot closer for a while than I thought it was going to be.
And I'll say this, Brock Purdy definitely.
And then, of course, exactly what we thought was going to happen happened.
I'll say this too. Brock Purdy easily had his worst game that he's played. They definitely found a way to put pressure on him, and he definitely made some, frankly, terrible throws.
But he didn't throw an interception.
No, but there was a couple that were close, to be fair.
There were a couple that should have. In fact, there was one.
Like, it literally dropped out of his hands. Yeah.
And had they picked that off, I think Dallas wins that game.
Probably.
Because that was on the way down
for that field goal, right?
The touchdown.
Oh, the touchdown. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then there was, like, the penalties, and then that's when
there were two holding penalties, and one of them when you sacked.
Yeah. That was bad.
You sacked Brock Purdy and still got a defensive holding call against you. Oh, that was bad.
That's bad. So, yeah,
You guys beat yourselves. And then Dak threw 2 interceptions.
That was big, too. Yeah. You just can't be having those.
You guys are a great football team. I get losing Tony Pollard. We need to talk about that real quick. Tony Pollard went out in the second quarter. They thought it was just a high ankle sprain. Apparently, he has fractured his leg and requires surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Speedy recovery to you, sir.
Yeah, that's no fun, especially when you're running back.
Again. It does sound like you'll play football again. It doesn't sound like you have the Garrison Hurst injury.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's like, oof, that's unfortunate because, like, even if he does heal from it, you got to wonder, as a running back, you use your legs a lot. Not that nobody else doesn't, but you get what I mean. Like, you rely on that far more than your hands or anything else. So,
yep.
How is he gonna be back to his old self, or is he not gonna be able to perform to that high level anymore as well?
100%. That's something we need to worry about. Yeah, or they need to worry about. 100%.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Brock Purdy looked decent. I think the problem they're gonna have is they're going on the road to Philly, and from what I saw, Brock Purdy's only played a couple road games. Most of his games that he's been home with.
Let's bring this up real quick because I think this is interesting and I think it's fun. Because I have something here that I think is hilarious. The last time Jalen Hurts played Brock Purdy was in college.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Jalen Hurts played at Oklahoma. Brock Purdy played at Iowa State. The final score of the game was 42-41 Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts was 18 of 26 for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns with 22 carries for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy was 19 of 30 for 282 yards, 5 touchdowns with 15 carries for 55 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
They both lit it the fuck up in college in that game.
Now,
do I expect that to happen this time? No, this is going to be a defensive game.
But I will say this: I think you're going to Philly. You're still a rookie. You made some errors in your last game. Man,
at home.
At home, even. Man, I want to say the 49ers have a chance, but playing in Philly is just different. And especially against that Eagles team, it's going to be hard.
So let's talk about that then. Let's move into our predictions.
I think this is going to be the real test for Brock Purdy.
So then let's move into our predictions here real quick, because we're starting to talk about them already.
I mean, we already finished our recap anyways.
We just finished our recap.
I think we did anyways.
We did.
Yeah.
There isn't anything else.
Yeah.
Niners at Eagles.
I would love to see the 49ers win. I'd love to see Brock Purdy prove that he is the deal.
Go to the Super Bowl.
Because especially like the storyline of that is so great. Like, you know, a QB that got drafted last, Mr. Irrelevant,
is now the starter in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, like that's just a great storyline. But I hate to tell you, the Eagles at home is just something different when it comes to NFC championships. And unfortunately, we know all too well as Vikings fans that Eagles fans are relentless as fuck.
At the link,
I'm sorry, I had to take the Eagles on it. I don't want to, but I just have a hard time.
But I agree with you 100%.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope they show up.
I would love to be wrong. I don't think I am.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I don't think I am. Bengals at Chiefs.
So this one, I could see Chiefs winning, but I'm actually taking the Bengals for 2 main reasons. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. That's all I have to say about it. I mean, literally, you have Joe Burrow, who plays better than the postseason, loves the pressure, is going to play well. You just know he is. And you have Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be limited on his feet. He's not going to be able to play. They've already admitted that some of the playbook they won't be able to use properly because he can't move as well as he would normally. So that's going to limit a little bit of their playbook, and you know the Bengals defense is going to see that and go, pressure the shit out of them.
I agree with you 100%. I will also take the Bengals on this.
We're either going to be both correct or both very wrong.
Yeah, and as the games got less and less, I knew there was going to be less chance for us to split on things.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I 100% agree that the Bengals are going to pressure Patty Mahomes. Look, let it not be said that I don't like Mahomes. I love Patrick Mahomes. I think he's a fantastic frickin' quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Travis Kelce is going to give the Bengals fits.
Oh yeah,
Because that's what he does.
That's what he does,
He's
yeah.
amazing at that. Just like I think George Kittle is going to give the Eagles fits. But at the end of the day, I think the Bengals are going to put enough pressure on Mahomes to keep him unbalanced. I don't think he's going to have the same power behind his throws he normally does because the foot that got injured is his push-off foot.
that is his push foot. Yeah.
It's his push foot. So I don't think he's going to be able to get as much power behind his throws. I don't think he's going to be able to put them as far downfield as he wants. He's not going to be able to escape the pressure. They're going to have to try to run more. And I don't know if McKinnon or Pacheco, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, CH. Don't forget CH.
Paco, something like that.
I don't remember, but you can't forget CH. I mean, they got a good trio of running backs there, but
yeah, I just
Yeah.
I don't think that they're gonna that the I don't think the Chiefs are gonna win that this year. I think this year they're gonna lose again to the Bengals.
even
They
if
will eventually get them.
Yeah.
I have no doubts in my mind that the Chiefs will beat the Bengals at some point in time in the playoffs. It's
probably
going to happen.
Inevitably it'll probably eventually will, but the Bengals just seem to have their number at the moment.
Yeah.
It's funny because you almost have a rock paper scissors thing going on. Like,
Yeah, and it's funny because normally, like, the Bills normally handle the Bengals pretty well.
yeah, normally.
The Bengals handle the Chiefs, and the Chiefs handle the Bills.
Yeah.
But, you know...
The Bengals have been proving that over the last 2 years, anyways, that Joe Burrow might be just, he might be the fourth edition of I have gun, I win.
Bomb.
Yeah, Bob, I blow everything up, get fucked.
Well,
And
him and Jamar Chase at any rate, because remember, his first year he wasn't very good. Then they added Jamar Chase, and suddenly that offense exploded.
he was decent, but you have to remember that he was a rookie and he got injured halfway through the season. So
He did get injured halfway through the season.
So we don't know how his back half of that season would have actually looked, because maybe he would have done the same thing he did the last 2 years here, where the back half is actually his better half. I don't know.
Maybe. He seems to be that guy. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that all works out. That being said, I will also take the Bengals. I think that the Bengals defense is going to go hard.
Yeah, and that's
I
the
think
other
they're
thing I was
going to
gonna
dial
say.
up some blitzes and come hard at Mahomes and
Yeah.
force him into quick decisions.
And
And
that's,
I don't, with him being in limited mobility, I don't know that that's good for the Chiefs.
it's not, and this is what I was gonna say is that even if the Chiefs try to rely on their run more, the Bengals' run defense is actually pretty good. They have been able to snuff most running backs on the ground. Once in a while, they come up against a guy that's just really good and they have a hard time with, but more often than not, they have done a very good job at stopping any running backs. Like, you look at that Bills game, and they tried to get that running game going, and the Bengals just went, no. Like, granted, the Bills don't have the best running backs, but they're not bad. They're very serviceable running backs. But the Bengals just shut them down. Even Josh Allen couldn't move much. So, I think that's just going to be a tough game all around for the Chiefs. If the Bengals can cover, Travis, like, the big one is if they can cover Travis Kelce and keep some of their other wide receivers down, they're going to have a really, really hard game, to be honest.
I can see that. All right.
Oh, excuse me, apologies.
That's all right.
Did you want to go on to
Hot potato?
hot potato? You want to go on to hot potato?
Hot potato. Let's do hot potato. Hot potato into Dante's and into some showers, and then we'll move into Vikings corner, hockey corner, and game balls.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Hot potato, go.
I had some for hot potato, and then I just deleted two of them because I don't think they're worth the time anymore, because one of them we've just talked about and gotten rid of, and the other one we kind of know what's going on with. So there's not much point in talking about it. But I have a spicy one for you. I'm going to yeet a spicy potato at you to start with.
Go ahead.
Maybe the Carolina Panthers have the most desirable coaching gig open at this point?
The Panthers. Most desirable, no.
For head coaching.
Yeah, for head coaching, no. they have some decent pieces, but I'm not eating that potato because I actually believe there is one other team that I think is more desirable. And people might think I'm crazy, but I think the Texans are actually a more desirable spot.
Thought about that, but I have a counterpoint to that.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying that the Texans, I think, are more put together, and they have a second round pick to get that franchise QB. So
they have quite a bit. They have quite a good set of picks.
They do.
The last two coaches there haven't lasted more than a year.
Yeah, you're right. Which makes it less desirable, to be honest, because that means the owner is more willing to just fire people.
That's what I was kind of getting at. The last two coaches in Houston haven't lasted more than a year.
Yeah.
And you're obviously going into a full rebuild situation. You've already got at least one guy that doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Nobody has expressed that in Carolina, yet expectations are still low. You've still got some good pieces in place. You've got extra picks from the CMC trade. You don't really have a salary cap issue. The owner there does tend to keep people longer than he should.
So here's
Matt Rule.
Yeah. See, so I understand where you're coming from with, like, the last two guys got fired from the Texans, but I hate to be that guy. We both knew that when they got hired, they were stopgaps. They were not going to be permanent. They were probably going to get fired within the year. I knew it when I saw Lovie Smith get hired, and I knew it when...
Don't you remember the name of the guy before him, do you?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. The guy before him, like, he got brought on because... I hate to see that guy, but to me, it looked like politics. Deshaun Watson, they were trying to make him happy by bringing on a colored coach. I hate to say it, that's what it looked like. Is that actually what happened? I don't know. But at the time, it looked like that. And I don't think anyone would be hard-pressed to argue with me on that. And then when it came to the last coach, Lovie Smith, I mean, there wasn't a lot of other coaches.
I think he was their defensive coordinator.
He was. And there didn't seem like there was a lot of other options when it came to coaching available that they were able to entice to even come and interview.
Yeah, and I think they're putting themselves behind that again because they have a reputation of hiring stopgap coaches.
But I think this year if they've been able to reach out to more people. They already were able to interview Sean Payton. I think, personally, that they're trying to make it show that this is the year we're actually hiring a coach to really... It's because we have the high draft pick. We want a coach who's going to come in and work with the franchise QB. And I think that because of that, they're going to give whoever they bring on a little bit more time because they're going to be able to pick their franchise QB.
And here's the other question, though, about it. Because of everything that happened with Bill O'Brien...
They're not going to give him GM rights, obviously. Yeah.
No, but how much are they going to allow the coach to have any say in roster construction as well? And because of everything that happened with Bill O'Brien, you may have less control there of that just because of the way that ended.
Possibly, but you got to remember that some of the management within the Texans organization after Bill O'Brien is also not there anymore. So there's some different management there. You have to remember that they got rid of the one guy that everyone complained about, which was that religious guy or whatever. I forget what his name was.
No. That's not what I'm saying, though. What I'm saying is because...
I'm getting there. Just give me a second. What I'm arguing is that because they're firing all these people and trying to restructure entirely, I think that the discussion with the interviews is going to come down to if they're, like, for example, interviewing Sean Payton, that's one thing that they're going to talk about. How much control is the coach going to have? Because, the owner and him are going to talk, and they're going to ask, how much control am I giving? How much am I working with the GM? How much am I actually going to have say? That's something that the Texans are going to have to show that they are willing to give up because they know they're going to have to give up some amount of control, but they're also going to tell them, like, hey, you're not the GM, though, so you're not going to have final say. But I think if they're having as many interviews as they're having, I can't say for certain that this is true, but to me... it comes across as they're willing to allow another coach to come in, especially if it's a high-value coach, and have some amount of say, and have a little bit of control, but he'll have to work with the GM. It's kind of like how the Vikings have done it with Adolfo-Mensah and O'Connell. They made it very clear that neither one has full control and that they have to work together to come up with solutions. and they have both in both O'Connell and Mensah have admitted that this is the case, that they're both trying to work with each other to come up with solutions. I think it's the same thing with the Texans. They're trying to find a coach that's going to come in who doesn't want to have full control, but who's willing to work with the GM and willing to work, and I think that's kind of what they're trying to do. I don't think they're going to say to a coach, no, you have no control, because that would immediately turn away anybody who's coming in. That would be ridiculous and silly. Even if that's the case, they're not going to tell you that's what they're going to do. So I still think that the Texans is just a better place to go, because my biggest problem with the Panthers is even though that they hold, so it's a plus and a minus for the Panthers, right? They, like you were saying, they'll hold on to the parts for too long. Well, that might be also a part of a reason why a coach won't want to go there, because maybe they want to trade somebody or get somebody in the. And then
I didn't say parts. I said coaches. They'll hold on to the coaches longer.
But they do it with parts.
They usually give them a longer period of time.
They do it with their players too, though. I mean, you've seen it. I mean, come on. You look at what they've done with their QB carousel problem. Well,
I was going to say not as much as what I would think, because Baker, they didn't hold on to Baker for even an entire season.
That's because Baker wanted to leave and they let him go. All I'm saying is that they held on to Cam longer than they probably needed to. I'm just arguing that I think the owner's willing to spend money, which is good, but I think that the owner doesn't necessarily know the business very well, if that makes sense. I think he's prone to a lot of mistakes, and he doesn't rely on enough of his people to help make better decisions. And I think the Texans have a very similar issue, but I feel like the Texans are just further along with how they're restructuring that I think it's still more enticing. Like, don't get me wrong, they're close, and I think the big thing that's going to push the Texans into a more favorable light is simply having that second overall pick. I think that alone carries a lot of weight for a lot of coaches.
Okay.
Long way to say that I basically think that the Texans are still favorable over the Panthers, but it is close. I'm not saying it's not, but I still think,
All right.
Now, with that being said, I think there's other options that people are looking at, obviously, like the Broncos and the Cardinals, but...
Well, and the reason I didn't put the Broncos or Cardinals in there is because you've got to deal with a high-priced QB in both situations.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it's like...
you got to deal with fixing that QB in both situations.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying, like, I could definitely see, like, a Sean Payton or something going to the Broncos, but at the same time, he has to like the QB, right? So there's a whole lot of other set of worms there. Okay, what should I do for my first hot potato? Okay. This might come across as a bit biased, but I think you might agree with me on it, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who, depending on when this finally comes out and when people finally watch it, because, we've been noticing that we're getting viewers far after the video is released. But maybe the Packers need to finally admit they're in a rebuild?
Packers in a rebuild. That's
man. If they're not, they're hanging on by a knife's edge. Just saying.
You know what? No.
Hmm?
I think they're gonna. I don't think they're in a rebuild. I think they're in a retool. Because you get the only real piece you got to. Yeah, your defense kind of needs.
Your defense needs major work.
But you've got some good offensive pieces, and depending on what you have in Jordan Love, your offense isn't going to miss too much of a beat. And you've obviously got some big running backs that are young that you can transfer to a ground and pound style game with. You've got, Alan Lazard is a little older, but you've got Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who both look pretty good this year. at times for the
mean,
wide receiving core.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it still looks like a rebuild because you're bringing in fresh talent. You're bringing in guys that are younger and they're wide. Like, when you look at it from that perspective, if they're bringing in a lot of young guys for the offense, yeah, they're looking good, but you have to remember that they're still not at their peak, which implies that they're kind of still rebuilding that, retooling it, I guess. But I think rebuilding is
better than rebuilding.
I think rebuilding is still correct though, because they had, if you looked at what they did from last year compared to this year, there was a lot of shifting parts, and to me that stunk of rebuild.
No, that's still just a retool, because a rebuild to me is when you tear everything down. You have
they basically did. The only thing they did was trade the QB on that offense.
They did not. They traded off some pieces, but they didn't trade off everything.
They traded most of their talent.
So here's my thing. You know who's in a rebuild? Houston. You know who was in a rebuild a couple of years ago? Jacksonville.
Yeah. Okay. So
So to me, rebuild means you part everything that has any value, even the young running backs that you could get money for. Like, I think the Vikings are going to head to a point where they're going to need to rebuild soon, because they have a lot of old pieces.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. That's what the Packers did. They removed a lot of talent. You got to remember that's why Aaron Rodgers got pissed, because they were moving on with a lot of the vets that were costing him too much money. They went into a rebuild. I hate to say it.
They didn't go into a rebuild if they didn't get a high draft pick. Period.
Doesn't matter if you don't have to get a high draft pick to be in a rebuild. That doesn't have to be.
I think you kind of do.
I disagree.
You need to stockpile draft picks and rebuild your team from the floor up.
I personally disagree.
I think they're taking the same old team and they're retooling it. They're swapping. This is the same car, but they're swapping things out. That's all they're doing. To me, a rebuild is stripping it to the frame and putting everything.
In my book, when you remove an engine and you change out the engine, the moving parts, it is no longer the same car. I don't care what the body paint is.
To me, it still is. As long as you still have the same shocks, the same wheels, and you still have the same body, it's still the same car.
I disagree, but that's okay. I think
that's where you and I are going to disagree over terminology.
That's what I'm saying.
Again, I think it's a retool, not a rebuild. Now, do they need to rebuild? Yeah, they do. They need to strip everything out. They need to get rid of anything that has value, and they need to tank out hard. They need to suffer through, and this isn't me being biased as a fan. This is me saying this would be good for the franchise. Go to the bottom, try to get some high draft picks, and start at the bottom and work your way back up. Because every so often, you just need to do that. The problem is, the longer people gave the Cubs shit a couple of years ago, because they traded off Javi Baez, and they traded off Chris Bryant, and they traded off Anthony Rizzo, and they traded off pitchers, and they traded off a lot of pieces that still were performing really well. But their manager said something I agree with. At a certain point, you have to realize that you can't retool it, that the window is shut, and you just got to get rid of the parts.
Yeah, and I'm
trying to keep them past their prime is silly. Get as much as you can for them when their value is still relatively high. And to me, that's what the Packers should have done a couple of seasons ago.
They should have
traded off Rodgers. They should have traded off all those parts, Devontae Adams, and a lot of other pieces, and just gone to the bottom, see what you have in Jordan Love, and just sink down, grab some stuff, and then rise back up. If you part it out properly, and you go into a rebuild properly, knowing you're going to have at least 2 or 3 seasons of garbage, you can use the bottom out as a trampoline and spring back up. The problem is some teams want to try to hang on to the glory for so long that by the time you bottom out and empty everything out, you can't spring back up, and it's going to take you a decade to get back.
Well, here's a couple things to note on that too. So, one is most coaches don't want to be part of a rebuild because they know that their job is going to be on the line. People are going to be calling for their job. Like, it just is what it is. Like, even if it's not fair, you know that's inevitably what happens. So a lot of coaches don't want to be part of rebuilds because they know that by the time the rebuild actually starts happening after you've tanked, the odds that you're going to have the opportunity to rebuild is very small. So there's that problem. And then number 2 is that you just have teams that refuse to ever sink down that low because they don't want to. And there's one team that I can think of that I know that pisses me off that should have tanked a long time ago, got very lucky with some of the picks they got, and very lucky with the talent that they ended up getting, but they could have gotten there a lot sooner, which is the fucking Vikings. After the whole Adrian Peterson thing, after you saw that was going down a downturn, they should have just tanked the shit out of that. But they didn't. They got lucky with some picks. They got lucky Dalvin Cook. They got lucky with Justin Jefferson. They were able to get Adam Thielen on a walk-on. And then they were able to entice a QB that looked like a decent QB to come over, which ended up not working out. But now we're in the same position we were a couple years ago. We have a couple good pieces. You have some pieces that are not good, and then we have a lot of, and obviously we can talk about it when we get to Vikings Corner. We have a lot of other issues. So now you have to look at that. Do we need to full rebuild, or do we just need to retool? My point is that there are just teams that, no matter what, just refuse to rebuild because they don't want to be known as that team.
Which is why I would say that they're not rebuilding, but they should. The Packers should. They're retooling simply because they don't want to be that team. They have too much pride.
I get that. I think they're in a rebuild just because they kept Aaron Rodgers, because they wanted to keep their name from being that team, and they figured that if they kept Aaron Rodgers, it would keep them at a middling average, which is true. It did do that, actually.
Which is bad for them, which is why...
It's actually bad for them, but...
They're not in a rebuild. If they had gotten rid of Rodgers, I'd call it a full rebuild.
That's why I'm saying that they should just admit that they're in a rebuild state, or they should be rebuilding, and that's why I was saying...
I think they need to admit... Yeah.
That's why I said that they need
to admit that they should rebuild.
No.
Yes.
I admit that they're in a rebuild. I think the thing is that they don't realize that they're actually at that point where they're close to being able to rebuild, but they're failing to admit that they need to... that they're in that position... And that they should be in that position. They're not quite
rebuilding yet because they're not willing to admit that they're rebuilding.
Yeah, that's why I said they have to. That's why I said admit that they're in a rebuild. What I was implying was that they're at a point where they're actually in a very good situation to rebuild. They were for the last 2 years, where they traded off certain pieces. They should have let go of Aaron Rodgers to finally. I think that's the point when they admit that they're in a rebuild, is when they finally trade off of Aaron Rodgers.
If they trade Aaron Rodgers, I think they'll be admitting we're rebuilding.
So that's what I was implying.
I still don't think they've admitted it, so I still don't consider them to be in it. As long as they have Rodgers, they're retooling, not rebuilding.
That's why I said I think it's finally time that they admit that they are.
I think they need to admit that they need to be.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, my next one is a little bit of a spicy potato, and I think there's a certain segment of fan base that's going to come after me because, they're the mafia.
Okay, go for it.
Maybe Josh Allen is a little overrated?
Okay, that's not quite the potato I was expecting you to throw my way.
What were you expecting, out of curiosity?
I'll save mine because now I have one to throw at the mafia, so I'll keep mine.
Is it the Diggs thing? Please tell me it's Stefon Diggs.
It's not specifically about Stefon Diggs, but we'll go into that later, I think. Yeah, I'm just going to admit it. He's in my Dante's Inferno, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, he's in mine, too.
Okay, so first and foremost, I do not believe Josh Allen's overrated. I really don't. I'm not eating that potato at all. I think he's as good as advertised. I think he's a very, very, very good QB. I think he is going to create a Bills dynasty. In fact, I think they're already kind of showing that that's kind of the direction they're going. I think that he does need to continue still learning and still remembering, okay, when should I be throwing these deep balls? When should I be throwing these? So I don't think he's overrated. I think he's still learning. He still admits that he's still learning, and he's still improving every year. He is making less and less mistakes every year. So, no, I don't think he's overrated.
Okay.
Now I guess I'll throw my shot across the bow now.
Go ahead. Sorry, Bills Mafia.
Sorry, Bills. Oh God, this. Okay, how do I word this one? Even though the Bills are having a dynasty, they'll never win a Super Bowl. Not with Josh Allen.
Okay.
And now, and I will preface why.
No, I already know why. I already know where you're gonna.
Well,
because you've got to think.
Yeah, if you look at all the up and coming other dynasty teams you have, especially in the AFC, it's so stacked. You have the Dolphins that are looking great. You have the Kansas City Chiefs that are looking great. You have the Jaguars that are coming up looking amazing.
Jags, the Chiefs,
and then even in the NFC, you have the Bengals. And then in the NFC, you still have the Eagles are looking great. You still have the 49ers
Jets are on
looking
their way
great.
up in the AFC.
There's just too many teams in that AFC division that makes it so tough. Even the Steelers are looking better.
And even the Steelers look like their rebuild is going to be a quick rebound.
Yeah. So when you factor in all of that, the Bills are really good. I think they'll constantly make playoffs, but I think they're going to constantly get either stuffed by the Bengals or the Chiefs or the Jaguars. I just feel like they're just never going to quite ever get over that hump. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to pass that.
Okay, that's fair. It was spicy. I knew it would be tough.
I thought really hard about eating it, but it's because I feel like there is going to be at least one season where Mahomes is injured and out, where there's some problems in here and there's other things in here. There's going to be, just because of everything bad that happened to poor Buffalo.
Right.
There's going to be a season where the stars align and they win a Super Bowl. It's impossible for me to think that they can't.
You would think so, but I feel bad because the Bills, they have a record of that. You look back at the 90s. Well,
they absolutely do, because they ran into the Cowboys how many times?
Yeah, I was going to say, you look at the Buffalo in the 90s.
For Christ's sakes, there was the old joke. I don't know if you ever heard it, but the name Bills stands for Boy, I Love Losing Super Bowls.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I'm sorry, Bills Mafia, but I had to say it here. I'm old enough to know that one.
Yeah, if you go to the Super Bowl 3 times in a row and you lose 3 times in a row, it's hard not to feel like you guys are just not gonna ever get over that hump, man. I don't know. Don't get me wrong.
One of it was because of a kicker.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love the Bills. I love the idea of how bad they've been for so long, finally being good and finally getting that dynasty. And I feel bad that just as they're resurging and getting that dynasty, oh look, so are the Chiefs. So are the Jaguars. So are the Bengals. God damn it. Why can't we have anything nice? I feel bad, but at the same time...
And we'll see, because it's also entirely possible that the Bengals could get a key free agent piece somewhere. Now, remember, I think they would have done better this year, but one of their starting safeties was out almost all season. Their best pass rushing edge rusher had to go in for season-ending surgery.
Von Miller, right? Yeah.
Von Miller, yeah. So I think they have pieces. It's just, if they could have avoided the injury bug, I think they might have actually been able to
maybe
push themselves into that off season.
That's definitely
push
possible.
themselves into that Super Bowl slot.
Definitely possible. Yeah. I don't disagree. It just feels like they just never get the season right. Something always just seems to go wrong for them, you know?
Yeah. And I think eventually that has to change.
We'll see.
We'll see. My last one, I think, is a no-brainer, and I think you'll eat the shit out of it.
Okay.
I don't think this is controversial whatsoever. I think it's a bad decision if they do this, but I don't think that this is wrong. Maybe Lamar has played his last game in a Ravens uniform?
Oh, yeah. I'm eating that potato. Listen, I think they should pay him whatever he's asking for. I can understand why the Ravens are hesitant to do so, because they want to be able to pay other players around him. But you don't let go of a franchise QB like that unless you think you can replace him easily. Which, as much as I like Tyler Huntley, I don't think he's going to be a solid replacement for Lamar. He'll be decent, but he won't be a franchise replacement, right? Now, to argue for why the franchise might do it, they might look at it from, Lamar, you haven't been able to stay healthy, and even when you've made it to the playoffs, you haven't been able to. You've only won one playoff game, I believe. I think it is. So, so they could argue that's why we don't want to pay you more, and he might be like, well, no, but I can still do that, and they're like, well, you haven't proven it. So, here's the thing, people are bashing on the organization, being like, why haven't you paid him yet? And when you look at the dynamics of it, I can understand why they haven't. But man, there's a point where you have to realize he's at a hard stance, and if you want to stay relevant, you're gonna have to pay him.
And I hate to say this, but I think their best bet may be a sign and trade.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't even think they'll be able to, because there's a point where where Lamar is a free agent and they won't be able to trade him.
I think he's taggable, and I think he's an RFA. I don't think he's a UFA.
I think he'll be actually this year. If they don't tag him, he will be an unrestricted free agent. I believe so. I could be wrong.
They could tag him, which would be what I would do. He doesn't have to sign that tender, but they could tag him so he can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then you can work out a sign and trade deal.
That's possible. Yeah, that's true.
And that's what I was saying. If you're the Ravens, and that's kind of where you're going, I think that would be what I would do. So that way you don't lose him for nothing.
Yeah. I agreed. That might be the better way for them to go. Now, as for where he goes, there's plenty of opportunities, and he knows it. So there's plenty of teams that would be willing to give that a call.
Yep.
Panthers, Texans, heck, other teams that might be willing to trade or move around stuff. Seattle, actually. Dallas.
I think they'd be willing to trade Prescott for him.
The Jets.
Could you imagine him up in the Jets?
Green Bay. I hate to say it, but if they move on
Aaron Rodgers for Lamar, I don't want that.
I don't either.
That's not something I would look forward to.
I'd much rather see Kirk for Lamar, but they're not going to go for that.
Oh, no. They'd be dumb to go for that.
So, but Rodgers for Lamar is legitimately could be a thing, and that makes me very sad to think about.
But, well, maybe we could do Kirk and Cook for Lamar.
Maybe, but I don't know. Do they really need a running back that badly? I mean,
they don't really have one. Gus Edwards, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I still don't know if they would take that bait, though.
I don't know. But
Not that
we might have thrown a couple of draft picks in there, but it's possible. Anyway, we're getting off topic with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're gonna eat that?
Oh yeah, no questions. That's an easy one for me. All right, for my last one. I have a rough idea, and I'm trying to think. Oh, God. Okay. I'm going to toss you out a potato that even I'm not 100% on if I would eat it, to be fair. So, just to preface that to begin with. And we've already talked about it before, and I've already mentioned it. Oh, it hurts, though. Maybe the Vikings need to finally go into a rebuild?
No, I
don't know. Maybe you can retool it, but I'm not sure you can.
I don't think you can either. I think you have to go into a rebuild. I think you have to... At this point, I would shed... we'll talk about this, but I think they have to.
The problem is, the only reason I'm not sure I want to 100% eat that is because you have JJ, and you know that he's not going to want to stick around for a rebuild.
I think you're right about that, but if you do it right, you could pitch it as it's not... You're going to be down for a couple of years, but then you can springboard up.
But that might be his prime, right? That might be his prime years where he's going, well, I don't want to give up my prime years.
He's young yet. If you're only down 2 years or 3 years, then his prime years will come right at the end of that rebuild.
Maybe, but like I said, for a wide receiver, sometimes those prime years are your early years. For some.
We'll see. I think they do need to bite that bullet. And you know what? I hate to say it. I don't want to give up JJ.
No.
But if we went into a full rebuild,
we might have to.
Quite a package for that guy.
You could. It hurts to say, but I'm hoping that we can move everything else around him and still somehow maintain that. But
I don't know if we can. Yeah. And it would hurt, but
now if we can retool it and just if we can somehow bring on one of the big free agencies, somehow move Cousins and pick up a big free agent, or somehow get a big draft pick this year, somehow move up in the draft. Maybe there's a way they can retool it, but it will be tough. It'll be a hard retool. It'll almost look like a rebuild, but not quite. But you'd have to make those decisions basically this year and push on it this year.
I think you have to make all of that this year. I don't think there's anything else. And, you know, with JJ being available for contract talks, I know you can pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah. But
you have to get into an extension talk. And so this year is really the year you have to start thinking, are we going to rebuild? Because if we're going to rebuild, then trading off an in your prime Justin Jefferson nets you a ton of crap. You're obviously going to let Christian Kirk walk at the end of the season. Then you're obviously not re-signing him. You're obviously going to start looking to trade off Cook. You're going to Christian. Did I call him Christian Kirk? I called him Christian Kirk.
You did.
Captain Kirk.
You're talking about Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. Pardon.
I was like, Christian Kirk's on the Jaguars, my guy.
I added Kirk Cousins and Christian Ponder together to get Christian Kirk.
Oh God. Oh, that's almost to be honest, that's almost an insult to Kirk Cousins with how bad Ponder was.
Yeah. All right. But you're obviously going to let Cousins walk. You're obviously going to let, at that point then, I don't even know if you would re-sign Madison at that point. I mean, I'd like to.
Maybe. But yeah.
But, if you're going to go into a full rebuild, you might just let a lot of pieces walk and just sign up as I would say, the Arizona Coyotes version of a team. Just sign some warm bodies to a team that you know is going to blow and just tank straight to the bottom as quick as you can. Shed every piece that you can. Get as many draft picks and young players and pieces and prospects as you possibly can bring back into the organization. And then springboard back up from there. If you do it right, you're down for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and then you bounce right back up. Yeah. Because that's about how long it takes to refill your tank if you sell properly.
Yeah.
But you got to have a fire sale, and you got to do it right.
In some cases, I've seen some teams actually do it within a year if they do it right. A year,
maybe even 2. Yeah. Right. I'll point out the Jags. They went into a full fire sale mode. Then they wound up with Trevor Lawrence, but they had the wrong coach, quite obviously. They got the right coach in there. They rebounded and got one more first-round draft pick, and now they look like they're in full contention mode.
Yeah.
So you do it right. You get down for a year or 2. You have a couple of really shit years, and then you bounce back properly. Mm-hmm. Now you can also do what some teams have done and just fall into the dirt so hard. The Jets collapsed and hit the dirt so hard that they left a crater.
Yeah. And still are trying to get out of the crater.
They're getting a lot better. I will say this:
they're almost out of the crater where they can finally start making headway.
They're very close now, but for so many years.
To be honest, there's one other option that they could take, which is one that I had mentioned already, but basically is doing the Rams, which is we're just gonna give away most of our first round picks to get like a shit ton of good stuff from like trades and in the free agency. Just spend a shit ton of money.
Now, I will say that the problem is that you wind up where the Rams are at now.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll get a couple good years out of it, but
you'll
man,
get 2,
once you hit that rock,
you gotta hit that window perfect.
Yeah.
And if you miss even a little bit, you look like an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Rams aren't gonna have anything for a couple of years now. They're gonna go into a complete slide.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
Rams. To be fair though,
Super Bowl out of it.
I was gonna say, to be fair, they hit that window just right.
Yeah, they hit the window just right, but now they're gonna pay the price for that.
They're hemorrhaging now.
So the question is, do you want long-term success and maybe not a Super Bowl, but runs to championship games, maybe make the Super Bowl a few times, etc., with a chance of winning, or do you want to win one Super Bowl and then collapse?
Yeah, right.
Which I think is what the Rams are in the process of doing,
basically.
So again, there is that option, but it all depends on what you value and what you want.
And then also it's easier to do that if you look at a team like the Rams had and you go, we're so close, all we got to do is just get a couple more pieces. They went, fuck it, we'll just spend a shit ton of money in draft picks to get the couple pieces that we need, and then we'll be golden.
Exactly. They were
They were already there. And I'll argue the Vikings are actually in a very similar position outside of the defense.
Even close.
That's why I said outside the defense.
Outside the defense. The Rams had a great
They had a great defense, yeah.
They needed another wide receiver and a quarterback and maybe an edge rusher, which they got on defense. And Super Bowl.
Yep.
But I will say that the Vikings, no. If we were a couple of pieces away, like, you know when the optimum time for us to do that would have been? Right after we lost to Philadelphia after the Minneapolis Miracle game. That was prime years. Keep Diggs, trade off all your first round picks, bring in what you need, get rid of Cousins, bring in this, do that. Well,
we
you
didn't
have
Cousins
at that point.
We got
But
Cousins
you bring
after
in-
that, yeah.
We got Cousins right after that, but you shouldn't have gotten Cousins.
Nope.
There are other things you could have brought in, other things you should have done. You bring in a bunch of stuff, and then you win a Super Bowl. And then you can fall apart. The problem is we did it wrong. And we're one of the teams that tried to do what the Rams did and fell apart. So I don't trust us to do that again. So
different GM, to be fair, but yeah.
At this point, I think we need to part it all out and start over.
I don't know if I'm convinced that we're there yet, but it's getting close. Like, I don't know.
Look, we had a great season. But
I think if we get a good defense in there, we get rid of some of the pieces that are taking up too much, I think you can still get away with a retool. It would be a pretty big retooling. Like, it would be, like I said, it would be a massive retooling. It wouldn't be like it'd be almost close to a rebuild, but not quite. I think there's a way they can do it, but it's going to be very tight, and you have to be really very careful. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to be really careful with it. We'll see how they approach it. All right. Inferno time?
Inferno time.
Inferno time.
Inferno.
I'll start. And I'm going to start with a guy we've already mentioned.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
Stephon Diggs, my dude, you're in the fourth circle.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm gonna state, it is not because you got mad, ran off the field, packed your shit, and left because you were upset about losing. Because you tried to make it about that. That's not what people are mad at you for. They're mad at you because you got into a verbal altercation with your quarterback on the sidelines
again
and acted like a petulant fucking child.
Yeah.
Stick around, answer the question, say, nah, I'm angry as shit. We shouldn't have lost. You know what? I understand. He and I will have a conversation on our own after all of this, and I don't want to talk about that until after he and I have cleared the air. That is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
But you went and tried to clear the air on the sidelines in full view on a national game with your quarterback, and then didn't answer any questions. You just fucking took off? Nah, my dude.
Yeah.
You're in the fourth circle. You look like an asshole.
Yep. I'm putting him in my third circle. Stephon Diggs is in my third circle. Obviously, I don't have to build it up because we already knew about this. And the reason why I'm putting him in my third circle is not only did you have a verbal altercation with your quarterback, the quarterback clearly was trying to focus. Like, if you notice when that happened, he was still trying to focus on the previous plays and look down and, like, try to assess, like, what can I do to get better? And you're coming over screaming at him, and he's just, like, looking up at you like, leave me alone, bro. I'm trying to figure out how we can still fucking win this game, dick. Like, and then on top of that, you had then the audacity to try to run out of the stadium because you were so fucking pissed off about how things were going. Like, first off, you didn't play well. You don't have that. I'm sorry, you didn't play well. Don't blame it on your QB. You didn't play well. And then you have the audacity to try to run out of the stadium as fast as possible before even the coaches were coming out. Like, my dude, like, you acted like a child. You did the thing that you did with the Vikings, and the Vikings traded you not because you were bad, and not even because you requested, because they were tired of dealing with your shit. Don't do the same mistake to a team that you said that you love to play for now. Because if you do it, eventually it's going to become a pattern and nobody's going to want to play with you. Don't become the next fucking Brown, all right? That's all I'm saying.
I was just about to say that.
You have to cut this off now. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to play with you, man.
There you go. Rain Dakota Prescott. Fifth circle, sir. I'm splitting it on you half and half. Mostly because I don't know what the fuck I'm getting. When you're good, you're good. When you're not, you're horrible.
Yeah.
So you're either not at the circle or at a 1, so I'm going to split the difference and say you're at a 5.
That's fair. That's fair.
My guy, you got to do better than what you did. You guys had a shot to win that game. You threw a couple of horrible fucking passes. You've got to be better.
Oh, yeah.
I understand that you lost Tony Pollard, and I think that affected your game because you lost your running game. I understand that there were some defensive lapses too, but my guy, you've got to win that game. You should have won that game.
Oh, absolutely.
And you blew it.
Oh,
you absolutely blew it. And I understand now that you're getting dragged by Cowboys social media. Jerry may have turned on you. There's a lot going on there, but my guy, you're in the fifth circle right now, and I think part of that is due to what's happening to you now.
Absolutely. So. I definitely agree with you on that one. So, sitting at my fifth circle, Daniel Jones, my guy. What the fuck was that?
You know what?
You know what? Just as much as Dak Prescott, you never know what you're getting. Holy shit, Daniel Jones.
You know what's funny? I said, hey, after that great game that he had, last week, but getting into the playoffs, he's due for a stinker against the Vikings. You know when he had that stinker?
Against the Eagles.
Against the Eagles. He threw up the game I thought he was going to throw up against the Vikings.
Oh, God, it was bad. Listen.
It was so bad.
Yeah, Jones, even though they're going to give him an extension, here's the thing. Jones, my guy, you're inconsistent. And to be fair, I'm going to say this, and I said it to Matt, too. I'm now worried that the Vikings just made you look amazing. Because our defense was just that bad. And if that's the case, you better prove me wrong, because if they're going to sign you to an extension, you're going to make or break that fucking team, my guy.
Exactly. You're either going to be great for it, or it's going to fall apart around you.
Yep.
My last one, I really didn't want to put him on here, but I am anyway. Christian Kirk, you're in the 10th circle.
Yeah, he had quite a few big drops.
My guy, that deep ball. You've got to catch that thing.
It was right in your hands, man.
Got to catch that.
Also, I want to point out that, did you see the backlash from the commentators on that play?
I did not.
So during the play when it was called, they said this was a horrible take. I forget what his name is now. He's the taller white guy. I forget what his name is. He said that Trevor Lawrence had overthrown Christian Kirk. Are you smoking crack?
Probably.
Everybody that heard him say that immediately ripped into him because they're like, look at where the ball was. It literally hit him in the hands. He threw it pretty much perfectly dimed on Christian Kirk.
Exactly. He did not throw him. And Kirk just dropped it.
Kirk just dropped it, bro.
You might have been a receiver, so you're sticking up for your receivers? Dude, that's just a poor take.
That was a horrible take.
That was a horrible take. So, Christian Kirk, you're in my 10th circle. You're not horrible. You're just a little warm because, you you shouldn't have dropped that.
You made some big mistakes in the playoffs.
You made some mistakes, and like I said, I think you'll still come back from it. I don't think it's bad. So 100%, I think you'll be back. I think you'll be okay. But, my guy, you got to be called out for that. There you go. You got another one for me? Hold on. Are you looking up a name?
No, I saw something come across my thing about Aaron Rodgers. And I just wanted to confirm that it wasn't, big news.
No, he's not being traded. He told Pat McAfee that he'd be willing to adjust his current $150 million contract if he decides to play.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I have it here, too.
Yeah. Nothing about... I was just making sure that there wasn't any type of trade news or anything on it. Okay, whatever. That's not big news. I don't care about that. We already knew that was a chance. That if he came back, it was going to be a reworked contract anyways. So my final Dante's Inferno.
Do it.
Bills defense. You're sitting at a 5. Guys...
That wasn't the Bills piece I thought you were going to throw in there.
I wasn't going to put Josh Allen in there. Yeah, I thought about it.
No. I've got a different segment.
Oh, okay. Man, I know the offense didn't play as well as you guys wanted to, but defense, the Bengals' offensive line was weak. They were out 3 of their starters, and you couldn't put any pressure on Burrow at all. You just let him sit back there and throw as long as he needed to. He barely got hit. For the Bills Mafia that you expect from the defense, they just didn't show up that game. And I know that they had some injuries, and I know they were dealing with some, but equally, so were the Bengals. And you guys still just couldn't pressure Burrow at all.
Yeah.
In your own stadium, even. So, I hate to say it, you guys are sitting at a 5 just simply due to the fact that I know you can play better, you know you can play better, and you just didn't.
Look at the opening game of the season.
Yeah.
All right, hit the showers.
Hit the showers.
Brett Maher, again, hit the showers.
Poor guy, dude. He just can't catch a
He
break.
made 2 field goals. Good job. You still had an extra point block, dude. That's 6 extra points in a row now that you fucked up.
Not only was it blocked, they said even if it hadn't been blocked with the way it was going,
it was
gonna miss anyways. It's so bad, my guy.
Motherfucker, are you trolling everybody?
Maybe he just doesn't want to be a cowboy anymore.
I don't know. Oh, Lord.
All right, Stephon Diggs hit the showers, my guy. Like, that's horrible, and you know it.
Yep. Daniel Jones, hit the showers, my guy. That was a shit-ass game.
That was pretty bad. Man, I hate to do it, but Christian Kirk, you do need to take a shower, my guy. Like that. I know it was a good game, and I know that it was tough, but for what they're paying you and what they're expected in the playoffs, you just didn't quite get there. It happens.
The Bills' running game.
Fair.
Fucking to the showers. What running game? Y'all don't have one. Y'all fucking need one. Whoever is in charge of trying to find you a running back, go with them. That's horrible.
Fair. That's fair.
When Josh Allen is leading your team in rushing, you have a problem.
You know, I'm gonna do a controversial one. I'm gonna do one last controversial one. It's very minor. It's kind of like a Christian Kirk situation. It wasn't a big deal. But man, I hate to say it, Purdy, you didn't look great that game. You might need to just cool off a little bit. Take a light shower. You're not like in big trouble, but you're gonna have to prepare for that Eagles game, man. You gotta lighten up a little bit there, man.
That's gonna be a game.
Yeah.
All right, real quick now, we're gonna move into. Let me pull it up because I had it here. I don't know if I still have it.
Are we going to hockey or Vikings?
Vikings corner first, then we'll go into hockey corner.
Okay. I know that we have differing opinions on the Vikings situation.
Not really.
I mean, similar, but some slight differences. Like, yeah.
A little bit. All right, so let's talk about this. We're going to just start off the Vikings corner here. I'm going to start listing off players and their cap hits. You can tell me what you want to do with them. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins, $36.25 million.
Obviously, if you get the opportunity to trade him, go for it. But I have a feeling that there's very little interest in him, and you can't cut him because that's going to be expensive as fuck. So you probably
$48.7 million in dead cap.
Yeah, you probably just play him for the year and let him walk next.
Adam Thielen, $19.96 million.
I would love to keep Adam Thielen. The problem is I don't know if we can afford to keep him. If he's willing to restructure down, but I don't think he's willing to take that little down. I don't think we're going to be able to restructure it enough. It might be just a situation where you both agree to part ways and let him go somewhere wherever he wants to go next.
I will say that his dead cap, if we cut him, is $13.5 million.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, if you can trade him somewhere, maybe, but even then, I'm not sure he's going to want to.
Yeah, you'd have to get his okay first, in my opinion. Brian O'Neill, right tackle, $19.75 million.
He's actually been pretty decent. Like the first couple of years, he was looking rough, but the last year or two, he's looked pretty good. And I don't think you want to mess with your O-line. Your O-line's one of your few things that you want to keep intact. So I think you keep him around.
Dirty Harry, Harrison Smith, $19.12 million.
Trade him.
Zadarius Smith, outside linebacker, $15.49 million.
Trade him.
Dalvin Cook, running back, $14.1 million.
Trade him if you can.
Daniel Hunter, $13.12 million.
Now this might be a little different. I think you keep one of them around. It's either so if you trade Zadarius Smith, you keep Daniel Hunter. If you trade Daniel Hunter, you keep Zadarius Smith. I think you want to keep a veteran edge rusher on staff, especially if you're going to end up rebuilding or retooling and bringing in younger talent. You want to have a veteran around.
Okay. Eric Kendricks, $11.4 million.
Love the guy. If you think you can keep him by restructuring his contract, go ahead, but otherwise trade.
TJ Hawkinson, $9.39 million.
with Irv Smith being what he is, you trade Irv Smith, you keep Hawkinson.
Actually, Irv Smith is a free agent.
Good. Let him go. Keep Hawkinson.
All right. So since we've done that now, those are the big cap hits. Everything after that is 6 million and less. 6 million and less. 7 million and less. But those are the ones that account for like 4% or more of the cap.
Gotcha.
Free agents. Let's talk about who you would keep and who you're going to let walk. And I could give you expected market values on some of them if you want.
Just give me the names and I'll give you kind of an idea, and then we'll kind of go. You can go over the numbers after if you want.
Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle.
He's been decent.
28.8 years old.
28. I mean, he's been decent. Maybe you let him walk though. It depends on if you can get him on a decent contract, maybe. But if it's going to be expensive, you let him go.
His expected market value is 8.5 a year.
That's tough. You might end up having to let that one go.
Patrick Peterson, 32.5 years old.
He has admitted he'd like to re-sign, so I imagine that if we can get him on a pretty good deal, keep him around.
Expected value 6.4 a year.
Oh, that's not a problem then. Yeah, you keep him.
Garrett Bradbury, center.
You keep him, not even a question.
You want to know what his expected market value is?
It could be over 10 million. Keep him. I don't think it is, but keep him.
11.9.
You keep him. He has proven over the last 2 years he is a top center. You keep that.
Greg Joseph, kicker.
Oh God, what's he want? What's the expected value?
I have no idea. It doesn't give me that one.
Kickers are hard to find. Greg Joseph has been servable.
His last value was 2.4 million.
Okay, I mean,
if you could keep him around there,
I think you probably do. Yeah, because I mean, finding good kickers is hard, and he's been serviceable. Has he been great? No, but has he been terrible? No. So I think you just keep that.
Nick Mullins, backup quarterback.
Yeah. Probably let that one go.
Shannon Sullivan, cornerback.
Sullivan. What's expected value on that? Does it say?
Does not say. He made 1.75 last year.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably going to need some backup corners. You probably keep that one around.
Irv Smith.
Let it walk. He's going to ask
know what his expected value is, just out of curiosity?
If it's more than 8 million, just let it go.
10.2.
Fuck, no. I'm sorry. He's either been injured. He doesn't live up to expectations.
Jonathan Bullard, defensive end.
Expected value?
No idea. Made 1.3 last year.
Yeah, if you can keep him around that, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The rest of these are more or less the only other one that's a big deal. I'll give you the other ones that I think are big deals. Alexander Madison.
Yeah, what's he? He's actually a free agent right now?
Yep.
Okay,
you want to know what his market value is expected at right now?
Go ahead.
1 year, 2.2.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, you take that. I was gonna say if he's less than 5, you take that.
I would expect them to sign him. I would expect them to trade Cook and sign him to a long deal.
Yeah, you keep that. I think.
Outside of that, there's not really any Chris Boyd, but most Ali Udo. I don't know if you want to keep Ali Udo because he's an offensive liner. Blake Brandel.
I mean, like I said, you don't really want to mess with your offensive line. You can keep them to a fairly decent contract. I think you keep them around, but outside of that,
that's kind of where we're at right now. As you can see, a lot of our stuff is being eaten up by Cousins and a couple of big guys at the top. Just so that you understand, so that we can talk about this a little more. Thielen is signed up this season and next, but we do have a potential out this year. And it is we'd still have to eat 16.5 mil in dead cap.
Ugh. I mean, I don't know if you want to hit that dead cap though. That's a lot of dead cap.
That's a lot of dead cap. Harrison Smith, we have a potential out this year. It'd be 11.7 million in dead cap.
I think you look for a trade instead of just outing. I agree. I think you could find a trade instead on that one.
He is signed up through 2025. He would be a UFA in 2026.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
he would be 37 at that point.
I imagine they try to find. You start looking at trades for that. And they might not trade him this year, but I would say that's you probably are close
Now,
on that table.
here's one that you could cut, and I think it would be decent. I don't think you have a problem. I don't think you have to trade him. Zadarius Smith. He is signed up through 2024. He'll be a free agent in 2025 when he'll be 33. They have a potential out this year. It would only cost them $3.333 million in dead cap.
They could definitely do that, but I think they can probably find a trade partner fairly easily for him.
I think they could too, but again, that's not a bad dead cap hit.
No, if they have to, they can go that way, but I'd almost expect to see him traded or playing. Like, I don't expect him to be
Dalvin Cook, I think you're going to be able to trade, but they do have a potential out this year. It would cost them... He's signed up. He's 28 now. He is a free agent in 2026 when he would be 31. They do have a potential out this year. The dead cap would be $6.2 million.
That's actually not terrible, but again, you don't need to cut Cook. You can find a trade partner easily enough.
I agree with you. Daniel Hunter is only signed up through the rest of 2023. This is the last year on his deal.
Okay.
And he is set to make $13.12 million.
So it might actually... This is where things might get interesting. It actually might be better to keep Zadarius Smith and then trade Daniel
Hunter as a rental.
Yeah. That might actually be the better way to go.
Kendricks is also in the last year of his deal.
I think you have to trade Kendricks. I love Kendricks, don't get me wrong, but I think he is just...
Well, if you cut him, he's only $1.9 million in dead cap. On an $11 million cap.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely cut him if you need to, but I think you're going to be able to find a trade partner for him. Again, he's a good enough middle linebacker. I think is what his official position is.
Firmly agree with you.
I don't think you have... Yeah.
Hawkinson they picked up his team option. That's what this next year is.
Okay.
For $9.392 million. He'll be 26 this year. He's 27 next. I think they're gonna have to work on a contract for him too.
Yeah, I think they keep him around. You want to have a good tight end. Because Hawkinson is one of those really good tight ends that he can catch, he can block. He's kind of an all-around really good tight end.
And I know you said you want to keep O'Neal. He's 28. He's signed up through 2026. He would be a free agent in 2027 when he would be 32.
Yeah, at that point you probably let him go, but I think you keep O'Neal around. He's proven that he's good enough now. Like his first couple years was pretty rough, but the last 2 years, at least this last year,
I will say we
currently
do have $3 million in dead cap that we're working with.
Currently, okay.
Yeah,
that's not that bad.
Our current dead cap amounts to
it's probably from our coaches.
$7 million. No, it's a bunch of people.
Okay.
A bunch of people. Kellen Mond is dead cap. Chaz Surratt, Wyatt Davis.
Yeah.
Harrison Hand. Blake Prohl.
Yeah.
Josh Sokol. Etc.
It is what it is, but $3 million in dead
cap. It's a bunch of draft picks that we cut that never amounted to anything.
Which you're always going to have some of that, to be fair. But I think $3 million is actually not that, like, compared to what other teams have. $3 million dead cap is not that bad, actually.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous when you think about it. You're like, $3 million, what? But for a franchise,
the problem is
that's not that much.
We are $14.6 million over the cap currently.
Yeah, and so that's why I was saying that if I think you get rid of Cook, you get rid of Harrison Smith, you get rid of Kendricks, you get rid of one of your edges, either in Zadarius Smith or Daniel Hunter. I think that all of that immediately, with how much those guys are, immediately clears up that over cap space easy.
Oh, easily, and it gives us enough space to re-sign some people if we need to.
Exactly, and then that gives you room to put contract negotiate with JJ. That gives you room to possibly bring on a QB if you want to, a cheap one.
You also start negotiating with Hawkinson at that point.
Yeah, and that gives you also the freedom to explore the ability to move Cousins and bring on a free agent QB if you wish to.
Yep, there you go.
But
now, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about in Vikings Corner. Is I wanted to take a look at the roster and the cap hits and look at.
Now the real question is, will the Vikings do any of that? Probably not. They never make the decisions that I think they're going to.
I will say that this year they do have. This is going to be one of the first years for the full years that they have the new management.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I guess I'm just jaded by typical Vikings culture over the last 2 decades, roughly. So I don't expect much. I expect them to do the bare minimum. They'll move maybe a couple players, but you're going to have most of the same roster next year. I'd be surprised.
And like I said, I think they should move Cook. If I had to guess the people they won't move, Cook is one of them.
Yeah.
As much as I think they should move him.
Cook, I don't think they'll move. I don't think they'll move Thielen.
And I don't think they'll move Harrison Smith, even though they should.
Yeah, I agreed.
Because I think they're loyal to him.
Even Kendricks is hard for them to move on because he's been pretty much a Viking his entire life.
And I don't think they want to move on from Hunter. I think Zadarius Smith is logically the only one they're going to move on from.
Probably.
And they're going to let other people in free agency walk that they shouldn't. I think they'll probably let Madison walk, even though they shouldn't.
Yes. And there's a chance that they might not re-sign Peterson, which I think is actually a bad move based upon how well he actually played.
I agree. He was one of our best cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he played very well early on. Granted, the back half of the season he went a little quiet, but he was mostly good.
And you got to figure out how you're going to re-sign Bradbury. So
exactly, and you definitely need him. You can't let him go.
Yeah, exactly. So they do have some rethinking to do. It's possible they could renegotiate Thielen's contract down. It's possible they could renegotiate Harrison Smith's contract down. I would expect those to be the two that get negotiated down. It's also possible they could renegotiate and extend Cousins to drop his cap hit.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not a big fan of that, but
Neither
again, where he's eaten up almost 20% of the cap.
I'm just saying if they do that, it's not gonna look good because everyone's gonna be like, "Are you shitting me? You're doing this game again?"
Well, and part of it is because they need to create the space. The problem is, I don't think that they realize that they need
every time you extend them, though, you're making it harder in the future to get rid of them. You keep doing this, you're making it harder.
I think
and
at
harder.
some point you need to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, you just keep pushing the ball down the road.
Yeah.
I think if there's any time to do it, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, and I think what they need to do is I think they need to rip the Band-Aid off. I think they need to just go for a rebuild at this point, or an aggressive retool.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is that. Look, I get that you just finished and you made it. You topped the NFC North and you went, into the playoffs. You're not going to do it again next year with this roster. There's no way because the Lions are going to get better. The Lions have a high draft pick because of the trade they made with the Rams. They're going to draft some good players. Mm-hmm. It's going to be scary. The Bears are probably going to put together some stuff. The Packers may slip, but you're right behind them.
Yeah, you're actually not that far from there.
No, you're going to be middling at best, and that's what you need. You need to realize that this last season wasn't a what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, so when O'Connell and Mensah came over, a lot of people saw that they extended Kirk and went, "Oh no, here we go again." But their argument was, "Well, we just want to see what we got. We want to see if we can make it work. Let's see what team we have been given to work with, right?"
Yeah.
And you had good success, but you also had to realize that success was very marginal. Like it wasn't. Yeah, the record makes it look like it was a great success, but in reality, it wasn't as big of a success as it on paper looks.
And that's what I'm trying to say. The record and everything else makes you look and think the Charger thing. Charger's going to charge.
We're so close.
Oh, we took a step forward. We're so close. No, you're really not. You just got lucky in a weak division this year.
Yeah.
You feasted upon a division where the Lions are getting better, but they're still coming up. The Packers are falling off, and the Bears are still trying to rebuild.
Yeah.
So you got lucky in a weak division. You need to pull the plug now and rebuild and bounce back while you still can. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that the Packers are going to take longer to get up. The Bears may fumble the bag on this one. And if you do it right, you can bounce up and be one of the top two teams in the division again, along with the Lions.
So I'm just going to make this argument right now. If the Vikings were in the AFC division, we would not be at a 13-win record.
Oh, absolutely not.
The NFC in general was just weaker this year, except for like a couple teams.
Unless we were in the AFC South.
even then, like I think it, like that's only then. But then we'd be playing a lot of the other AFC teams still, and I think we get dominated by all of them. Like,
Yeah.
like it would still be like maybe a middling record, but it wouldn't be a 13-win record.
The only way we'd have a better record is by playing in the NFC South.
And even then, like I don't think it would be really any better of a record. Like it's because you got to remember that
you look at one of the weak teams from the AFC South. We almost lost to Indianapolis, for cripe's sakes.
Yeah, and you have to remember too that we didn't win all of our interdivision games. We actually lost to the Packers, and did we also lose to the Lions? I think we did.
We lost to the Lions.
So we only won 4 out of the 6 internal division games. And so, like in reality, yeah, that was 4 wins out of our 13. But we beat up on a bunch of other NFC teams that were mostly bad, outside of like a couple like the Eagles. But if we would have been in the AFC instead, I think there's only a couple other. It's not the same thing. Like we would have played a lot more better competition, like the Bills, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Raiders. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh, even. You know, I just think all of those teams are just would have handily beaten us just because their offenses are just gonna make that defense look like shit. I think the only way you continue with success with this team is if you fix that defense, and there's no way you fix that defense in 1 year.
No.
So
no, and that's I think the problem is you're gonna have to tank it out and go into a rebuild. It's there's not going to be enough options at the free agent market for you to plug the holes. And you've really got to start looking at all right, so now what?
Yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I don't think O'Connell's going to want to go and we're able to, yeah, he's young enough where he could survive it probably, but I don't think a young GM and a young coach are going to want to go into a rebuild. Like, they might go into an aggressive retool, but they're not going to want to do a full rebuild, I think.
We'll see. Sometimes that's exactly what you want, though. Sometimes as a young guy, you realize that that's something that's coming, and you can pitch it to your fan base as, hey, we're going to suck for a couple of years, but we're working at this.
Maybe.
So we're looking to bounce back, but we have to sell everything off now, and then we can be good again in a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe.
If we do this right.
Yeah, maybe.
Trust us. Trust the like the 76ers had. Trust the process.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
And
I don't
worked
disagree.
out for them.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You can. I think you just need the right coach to come across and be honest with the fans. Like, the last thing you want to do is just go, no, we're still trying to win games. Like, yeah, okay, fair. You're always trying to win games. It's the point. But you also have to admit that, like, when you move off of so much star talent, that you have to admit that, yeah, no, this is a process. We are over the cap by X amount. You know, we're trying to bring things back in line, and we're trying to look at our future and what we can build for the future. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that we're not trying to win games now. It's just as simple as we do need to address what our future is going to look like, because it's not with what we have now.
Exactly. And I think that if you were honest with your fan base about it, there was another guy who said something similar once. Spike Lee, Knicks superfan Spike Lee, film director Spike Lee. At one point in time, he said, I think if you told everybody that we have the most expensive roster in the NBA, and we're not getting much for it, and we're going to have a couple of years where we tear it down and rebuild it, and it's going to take us a little bit to get everything right. I think most fans would be behind that because they're not going to look for the quick fix and the okie doke.
Yeah.
The problem is it took the Knicks a long time to even admit that, and they tried to hide it for years. And they stunk for years.
Yeah.
And just recently they started finally coming around.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's kind of where Vikings Corner is right now. I think I agree with you that we kind of need an aggressive retool or a rebuild. And I agree with you about the players that we need to get rid of. Like, I like Harrison Smith. I'm a fan. I love him to death. But you're on the wrong side of 30. You make way more money than you need to. I'm sorry, my guy. You're probably going to be traded.
Yep.
Or you should be, anyway.
Back end of the career, I mean...
Dalvin Cook. I've been a fan of yours for a while, too.
Mm-hmm.
But, unfortunately, you make a lot of money, and you're replaceable, and you're a piece that, we have Alexander Madison, who's a great back.
Yeah.
You're injured a lot, but you know what? Maybe we can get some good pieces for you, and that's
Yeah.
kind of, I think, where we're at. All right. Now that we're done with Vikings Corner, let's go into Hockey Corner, and I've got a Gary Bettman rant this week. I pushed it off last week, but this week I've got it. I still couldn't find the financials I was looking for, but again, they bury those, so not too worried about it. Here's what I do know. Gary Bettman took office as NHL commissioner in 1993. Hockey at the time was the third most popular sport in America, behind football and baseball. And then baseball went into a lockout. And hockey was poised to become the second most popular sport in America. You had Wayne Gretzky out in Los Angeles. A lot of people knew about hockey. There had been, the LA Kings, star-studded power. A lot of, Hollywood people going to the games, kind of like the Lakers games. Mm-hmm. Instead, hockey has become a niche sport, and they are now the fourth most popular sport in America and lag well behind the NBA and the MLB. Mm-hmm. What happened is the NBA jumped them, and then the MLB, because you had Jordan, and they marketed Jordan better than NHL marketed Gretzky. Mm-hmm. And then you had the MLB fell back, or the MLB came back, and they had a bunch of rising stars that they could home run race. And I think that's what really invigorated it. Was in the mid-90s, there was the Sosa-McGuire home run race. Yep. And that really invigorated it. And hockey didn't have anything like that. And then hockey had the whole dead puck era in there. And the biggest that you ever were was probably during the Buffalo Sabres Dallas Stars finals, which ended in controversial fashion because you didn't know your own rules.
Yeah, it's true.
It wasn't that you didn't know your own rules. You circulated a rule change, but you didn't make it public.
Yeah.
So my big problem with Gary Bettman is he is the end-all be-all. He's been in office for so long. He's trying to do some new stuff, and it's failing miserably. He's the guy behind digital ads during the games, which it's made them almost unwatchable because they keep cutting off goalies' heads.
Yeah, they're just awful.
The implementation is awful, but he'll keep saying, well, the fans that we've talked to say that they like them. No, you haven't talked to fans. You're making that up.
You're lying through your teeth. There's not a single fan that thinks that's a good idea. Or somebody
is lying to you, and you're just delusional.
There's not a single person who thinks that's a good idea.
Hockey has made money. Now, their revenue has grown steadily year over year.
Gee, what a surprise.
It should have grown way more than it has. And that's the problem. And then you had the lockout, and you implemented a salary cap, and the salary cap hasn't helped Variety in any way, shape, or form. Nope. In fact, it has exacerbated the difference between the haves and the have-nots, and I'll prove it. Let me pull up the league standings. In fact, there are certain teams that struggle not to reach the top of the cap, that struggle to reach the minimum.
Really? That's hilarious.
Arizona.
That's hilarious.
And they do it by taking on contracts of players that are retired that will never play again, but still have a contract, so it still counts against their cap.
That's hilarious, actually.
All right. So, the top team in hockey right now is the Boston Bruins. They've played 46 games. They are 37-5, with 78 total points. The bottom team in hockey is the Anaheim Ducks, who have played 47 games and are 13-29 with 31 points.
Okay.
There is no variety here. I know that somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, but if you look at it, it goes... So just points. 78, 66, 66, 64, 64, 63, 60, 59. And then once you start getting out of the 50s, there's one team at 49, another at 47, and then it's like 43, 30, 30, 30, 30, and it's just garbage all the way down. So the problem that you're having is you have a few teams that are in the middle, and then you have the teams that every year are at the top of the pile, and it very rarely changes. Boston, Carolina, Toronto. Like, here, let me pull up last year's. All right, I'm going to pull up league standings for last year. Florida, Colorado, Carolina, Toronto, Minnesota, Tampa, the Rangers, St. Louis, Boston. Let me pull up the year before that. Colorado, Vegas, and like league-wide. Colorado, Vegas, Carolina, Florida. Do you recognize Pittsburgh, Toronto, Tampa? Do you recognize a pattern here yet? So you're the same teams. Like this year, you do have a couple of newcomers. New Jersey and Dallas are in there, along with Winnipeg. Okay. But again, Boston, Carolina, Toronto, Vegas, Tampa, the Rangers. You didn't fix hockey, you broke it. That's the problem with Gary Bettman. And he refuses to admit there's a problem. Mm-hmm. And they're not trying to fix it. And he's not trying to fix it. On top of which, the league doesn't know its own rules.
Of course not.
Constantly, the rule book is, what is a foul? What isn't a foul? What's slashing? They have a thing now where you can't kick the puck into the net. That seems like a good idea. I don't think wearing knives on your feet and kicking your feet would be a good idea.
What do you mean? That sounds like a great idea.
But... So you're allowed to redirect the puck using your skate if it's accidental. As long as you don't make a distinct kicking motion.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of confusion about what a distinct kicking motion is. Why is your bird trying to peck out your eye?
He's just chewing on my face.
Okay.
He likes to try to go after my eyelashes. Because he likes to try to pull hair out, and it's kind of annoying. Anyways, I mean, I would imagine a distinct kicking motion would involve your leg moving forward.
Yeah, but they've had that, and then not called it a distinct kicking motion. And then they've had other times where the skate is kind of moving forward, but it's still a little bit on the ice. And they've called that a kicking motion when it's obviously a skating motion.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, they have no idea what they're doing. They don't know what goaltender interference is.
Apparently.
They have no idea what anything is. They had one where Austin Matthews, one of the brightest stars in the league for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's getting physically ragdolled by somebody who has their stick is like up and around him, and he's being like physically manhandled. And he grabs he like finally manages to wrestle their stick down and pin it under his arm so they can stop like using their stick across his chest to drag him around.
Yeah.
And the penalty gets called on him for grabbing another player's stick. There were times when Brian Daugherty for the LA Kings, the man physically beat the crap out of Kirill Kaprizov with a couple of cross checks, got no call, and the moment that one of the Vikings or one of the Wild stepped in to defend him, they got the call.
Of course.
It's honestly, the refs have all the power, or the officials have all of the power, and no responsibility. They have no accountability.
I was going to say, it's kind of like the same problem that we have in the NFL, where we talk about where Joey Bosa brought it up, which I don't necessarily agree with everything he was saying, but the idea that they have no accountability, you can't back talk them, and it came out that Joey Bosa got fined for what he said. I think it was like $50,000 or some shit.
You know what's actually funny about that? The NFL is going to attempt to curb this problem.
They are. I will admit that they have said that they're going to try to come out and try to fix this issue.
And the way they're going to do it is fairly interesting. They're going to have year-round refs. Yeah. People whose whole job is to continually train to be refs.
Yeah.
And I think that's a brilliant idea. I think hockey should do the same.
I agree. I'm just saying that I think, while I agree with that stance, I think there still needs to be some accountability, as in, like, if the ref fucked up and the NFL comes out and goes, no, we agree that the ref fucked up and here's what we're doing about it. Be transparent that there is accountability, but they're not being transparent about the accountability right now.
And then the worst part is you have an office that Bettman has invented called the Department of Player Safety, DPOS.
Ooh, sounds like a load of bullshit.
It really is, because you have no idea what anybody's going to get. And half the time, if they get suspended, it's not based on what they did. It's based on their reputation.
Of course.
Tom Wilson is going to get more games than some dude that you maybe did a worse thing but has never done that before.
Right, of course.
It's there was a whole thing where Brendan Lemieux for the Kings, he bit Matt Kachuk twice in the hand.
Don't do that, bro.
Hold on. Once is biting, twice is eating.
What are you, a cannibal, bro?
The thing is, the NHL said they could only see one bite despite him having two distinct marks on his hands. The best part is, one of the fans went through the footage and found the second bite.
I was going to say,
you're a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar organization, and you can't do that?
Well, I was going to say,
what's wrong with you, Gary? And then
does he just have a really big jaw?
It's a joke that they have a roulette wheel at DPOS, and that's a $5,000 fine. That's a $5,000 fine. That's a $5,000 fine. Oh, you get 2 games. You get 2 games. Like, they'll hand out a bunch of the same penalties all at once, and it's like that's what the wheel gets stuck on.
Jeez,
like, there's no consistency. There's no accountability. You don't have a professional sports league. You have at best a collection of people that love it. And can you imagine, the problem half the time is now they do replays, but the replays take so long to do.
Well, here's
you score a goal, and now you're looking to see, is somebody skates 6 inches past the line before the puck got there so that you're offsides, and then it negates. Like, so if you're a fan and you bring a new person to hockey and you watch that happen, is it a goal or isn't it a goal? You don't know.
Yeah, right. You don't understand. Yeah.
And so how can you explain that to somebody and bring in new fans? Because that should be.
Yeah.
You know.
So there's some of that, but I think there's other things too that I'll bring up one thing that bothers the shit out of me about the NFL and reference it to NHL here. So NHL should not be as low down the tier as they are for several reasons. But the big one that bothers the shit out of me is that they have such a good ecosystem when it comes to how they bring up talent. They have several amateur leagues that they use, and then they have a good draft system. They have a good amateur league system. Several amateurs. The MLB has the same thing. And football still doesn't. And how is football still better than these guys? Because they're better at marketing. They're better at finding the talent and marketing their talent as being the top of their thing.
Is that so if
can you imagine if the NHL properly marketed their talent?
Oh God, could you imagine how big Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Kirill Kaprizov, name-wise. Like, you know who's been doing a good job of marketing their players recently? And I wish their commercials were further seen. They're not, but I wish they were. And there's the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
With the not weird, it's wild.
Yeah, exactly.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, go look that up on the Minnesota Wild YouTube channel. I think it's fucking brilliant stuff.
There's that, but like I said, like the thing that bothers me about the NFL is the fact that they don't have that ecosystem. They don't have a proper amateur league. They're working off of college, which is fine. But what happens if you had college and a minor league? That'd be great. That'd be great for you guys, and yet you still don't invest in it. Why the NFL still hasn't invested in that is beyond pretty much everybody. Everyone thinks it's a great idea, and they still haven't done it.
Like the USFL. Take the USFL, make it a minor league, a feeder league.
Yeah.
For NFL talent.
It'd be easy to do. You don't have to buy the USFL. All you gotta do is just give them a bunch of money and go that, hey, we're in partnership with the NFL. That'd be easy. It'd be that easy.
Exactly. You could do it like hockey does, where hockey has a lot of young leagues like the OHL and the WHL and stuff like that. But then you have the AHL, which is a direct affiliate for the NHL.
Exactly.
Every NHL team has an AHL team that is theirs.
It's
And
just like
that's where their young rookie talent generally cuts their teeth
exactly.
playing for a couple of years.
And the same thing with
unless
baseball.
you're like a top 5 pick. The top 5 picks
Generally go straight up, yeah.
come straight up. But if you're not that, you generally play in the AHL for a year or two.
And it's the same thing with baseball. I mean, look at how many, they actually have 2 minor leagues, if I remember correctly. They have
3.
Is it 3?
AAA, they have a single A, double A, and triple A.
Yeah, you're right. So there's what I said. I meant as 2 minor leagues.
Single A players don't get really.
Yeah.
They get paid, but they don't get paid.
No, I get it. But you know what I'm saying?
You're paying a lot of your own travel, and it's almost like you're paying for the privilege to be associated with a team.
Yeah.
Double A and triple A that's where you get paid.
Yeah.
But that's AAA especially.
Especially AAA. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that like they have the same thing, or a very similar concept, but all of the difference is that all of that falls under one team. So every team has a AAA, a AA, and you know what I'm saying?
And a single A.
And a single A. They all have, but it's all from like, so the Minnesota Twins, they have a AAA, a AA, and an A, right?
The Rochester Red Wings are, I believe, the AAA team.
Yeah, and don't they have the Saints? I think is one of them too, right? Is that the AA?
I think that's their AA, and I think their single A, I want to say, is, or it was, the New Britain Rock Cats.
Yeah, it might still be. I don't know if it is. But point being,
the mere fact that I know that amazes me.
But the point is that every team has that kind of same setup. And the leagues do it right. The only leagues that don't have that, I don't think the NBA has an amateur league that I'm aware of.
They used to. They used to have the D League.
Yeah, but I don't think they do anymore.
They don't anymore. They got rid of it.
And NFL, which is weird, because everyone thinks that both leagues should have amateur type leagues. I don't understand why they don't. Because it would be really easy for like to do the amateur league kind of similar to how baseball has it. Just go, okay, we're going to create an amateur league, and every team that owns a team now is going to have an amateur team. Granted, the owners would be like, well, now I have to pay more money. You do. Yeah, but it's not going to be nearly as expensive for an amateur league, first off.
I think,
you know, if you tie it into the main organization, I think it's not a problem.
One of the things I think that might solve 2 birds with 1 stone type of thing is if some of these leagues like the NFL and the NBA, they got into like the colleges and they started creating league affiliate programs within the college, because now you can pay the players, plus they can go to college, and if they wash out, they wash out. But that way you have like a sponsored program thing, and you turn the college stuff into like your minor leagues, into your feeder leagues.
You could, but then what about people that are no longer going to college? Are they still going to be allowed to go on the teams?
No, you would have to have like.
That's where
you would start a partnership with like the USFL or something.
That's what I'm saying. So I think you still need to have that other amateur league for people that are no longer in college.
That would be something that would be interesting.
Like, can you imagine, like, for example, like, no offense to Josh Rosen, but like he became a bust. Well, what if you would have been able to transfer him down to an amateur league to have him grit his teeth and see if he can still make it in the future?
Yeah, like down to the USFL or something.
Yeah.
100%.
There's still a chance that guy comes back. I mean, Geno Smith, that guy is one of the comeback players of the year, no question. But think about how fast he could have came back if you would have forced him to cut his teeth in the amateur league instead. Maybe he would have stayed a Jet and would have became the Jets franchise QB. Who knows? It could have happened.
Could have been.
So all I'm saying is that some of these players, and we've seen players that actually have become better as they've gotten older and more and have more playing time. And sometimes that's all they need is just to play more in a harder league than college. So that's why I'm saying you need an amateur league in between. So you need a college, then you need your amateur, then you got the NFL, right? You need that kind of in between, because there's a lot of players that don't make it between college to the NFL. Well, what if you just gave them some more time in an amateur league? Could they still possibly move up? It's possible. You just don't know. That's all.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's why I think Gary Bettman is.
And that's why I'm upset with the NHL, because they have that set up and they don't properly. They easily could be a number 2.
They don't.
Yeah.
They suck at marketing, and that is where I think Bettman needs to be gone.
Yeah.
I think if they were better at marketing and overall just better at I don't know, man. Being people.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, too, if you look at like sales for games, like I realize this is like a weird thing, but if you look at sports game sales, obviously your number one is going to be is Madden football. It just is. It's always going to be. But you'd be surprised at how much sales they move off of their NHL games. There is a lot of fans in that sphere. You're just not properly bringing in more. But what I was trying to say is that, like, if you look at the NHL games and how much they sell, you have a solid fan base there. You just have a problem with bringing in new fans in. So, it's clear you have a solid fan base. You just need to market better. Straight up. Excuse you, sir.
I will say 100%. I think you are correct.
Yeah, I agree that I think hockey should be in a better place than it is. I think it should be easily being within striking distance of being second place, and they're just not. Like if they're still gonna be third or fourth, like they should be close, but they're just not. They're just not close. So,
alrighty.
So we got hockey corner. Is there more that you wanted to address there? Or?
No, that I pretty much ripped Bettman pretty much as much
Fair
as
enough.
I wanted to.
I guess we're good to move on to game balls then.
Move on to game balls.
Game balls.
Game balls.
Balls.
I have a feeling you're going to take one of mine, so I actually have 4. Just in case you take one of mine, because I'm pretty sure you're going to take one of mine.
Maybe we'll see.
But I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Travis Kelce.
Huh? That's fair. That makes sense to me.
Travis Kelce, 14 receptions, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, sir. Game ball. That's fucking big. That's big.
Yeah, he's
14 catches.
Don't chew on that. Yeah, he's easily one of the best tight ends in the game. No question. Especially this season, he's been insane. That's fair. Joe Burrow. I mean, there's no questions. Joe Burrow.
That was the one I figured you were going to take.
Like, I don't know what all his stats were. I assume you have it, but he played out of his mind.
23 of 36, 242 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he played out of his mind, especially in the snow.
Amazing.
Like, when you saw that snow, everyone's thinking, oh, it's not going to be a pass-heavy game. They're going to be rushing all over the floor. And nope. Yeah, Joe Burrow still slinging the ball.
Joe Burrow's still out there flinging that football around.
Yep.
George Kittle, 5 catches, 95 yards, and 1 ridiculous catch. If you saw that bobbling, what the crap was that? Whatever it was, it ignited their offense. Fantastic.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Jalen Hurts, my guy, you came back. You came back. You showed that you were at 100%. You're ready to go. I mean, you just torched the Giants. Absolutely torched. You try to find your third now?
Yeah, no, I gotta try to find a third. Asshole.
You're welcome.
Because I was gonna do Hurts as well. That was one I was looking at where I was like, oh, okay, well, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Patty Mahomes.
That was my third one. Damn it.
Fuck you. 22 of 30, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns on a high ankle sprain.
Yeah,
sir.
You tough son of a bitch, man.
Guts. Game ball.
You tough son of a bitch.
That was a good performance, sir.
That was definitely a good performance, no questions. Son of a biscuit. Hold on. You know what? Fuck it. Jamar Chase, you're gonna get game ball. Like, you had some ridiculous catches in that game, no questions asked.
No, totally. I was gonna say either him or Joe Mixon. Both had really good games.
And I'll say this: that one touchdown that they ruled wasn't a touchdown, I think should have been a touchdown. And I'm gonna say it. And I know that's gonna be a 50-50 because some people are gonna disagree with me beyond that. But
yeah, and I actually saw that, and I think it was a great play by the defender because he punched the ball out.
So he didn't punch the ball out. So he got it
to move right at the very end.
Yeah. So this is my take on it: is that he had 2 hands down, he had control of the ball, and then lost control when the guy came and hit it. But at that point, he was already going out of bounds. So in my mind, he had gained control, had made a football maneuver, should have been called a touchdown. They're saying that no, the ball moved before he made that move. It's so, like I said, it's so 50-50, so I can understand why it's one way or the other. That's why I'm not making a hard stance of like, oh, they fucked him over. No, it's more like, I think it personally should have been a touchdown, but I can understand why they rule it not a touchdown. It was, like I said, 50-50.
The other one that you could have shouted out was Kenneth Gainwell from the Philadelphia Eagles. 12 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if it was going to be Boston Scott, but I don't think Scott did much that game, actually. I don't think Miles Sanders... I think Miles Sanders did well.
Miles Sanders had 17 carries for 90 yards.
I think he did well. He would have been my other one, probably.
Yeah, he did decent, but Kenneth Gainwell did very well as well. Yeah. So, all of those are acceptable choices. All right, I still don't have the next trade dissection done because it's just so wonky. I'm working on it this week. Hopefully I get it up this week. That's my kind of goal. We will see how the last 2 games. Now, we may not have 3 game balls to throw out anymore.
We'll see.
We might have to start throwing out some game pucks.
I was going to say, we might not even get all of our Dante's Infernos, and we'll do what we can, if there's egregious, obvious things that we'll address, but...
Yeah, just due to the fact that certain things are going to go down. Now, we have started looking at, instead of hot potatoes, we have a segment we're working on for hockey, because Chris is probably going to start following that a little more, just due to the fact that the NFL season's coming to a close. We're coming in on the trade deadline for hockey, and that's usually about the time that the playoff pictures start forming up, and that's about when Chris begins to follow his the hockey stuff. So we're working on cannon or fannin. A cannon shot. Are you taking that shot, or are you going over the top of it? Is it a fan? So we're working on that one. We've got a couple of other ideas, and we will be talking some more hockey type stuff. I'm going to try to get back into some baseball so that we can talk about that when the other sports kind of hit a lull. But as we've talked, he and I had a discussion. March 15th. Yeah. Is that what we said the date was?
The 15th.
March 15th is open of league business for next season.
Yeah.
At that point in time, that's when free agency opens. That's when all of that trades open back up again. So somewhere in there is about when we'll begin to start seeing everything happen again with that, and we'll start looking at mock drafts and crap at that point. We'll start looking at other stuff at that point. We are going to be doing our end of the year awards. We're going to be doing a look back 32 team review. And eventually after free agency, the draft will do a look forward to 32 teams. So we do have some stuff coming up. We aren't going to go on hiatus just because the NFL is winding down. We plan to keep this going year round, and we'll see how we can do. If there's anything you would like us to talk about, hey, hit us up, let us know. If there's anything you think we could do better, let us know. In the meantime, if you like what we do, smash that like, smash the subscribe, give us the thumbs up, let us know that everything is doing well. And we will see you next week.
See you later.
Peace out.